Chapter 1045. Zhao Fu gave her a detailed explanation and told her that he had controlled Song Xiu and that she would not betray him. So Lu Yu did not have to worry about the Lelai Kingdom's safety. Hearing Zhao Fu say that he had completely controlled Song Xiu, Lu Yu did not look too happy and instead felt a bit jealous. She patted Zhao Fu a few times and said, "You're too fickle. You're not satisfied with me and my daughter, and now you're looking for another woman." Zhao Fu felt quite startled and did not understand what Lu Yu meant. After asking, he found out that Lu Yu thought that Zhao Fu had forcefully taken Song Xiu, using pure desire to control her. Just like her, she could not betray Zhao Fu and had asked him to do it with her. Zhao Fu could not help but laugh, and he explained that he was not a lecherous person and that he was quite pure. Lu Yu looked quite doubtful and disbelieving. Following this, Zhao Fu told her to develop the Lelai Kingdom and quickly increase her strength, as well as help the Blue Wolf Kingdom recover. This was all so that after the Heaven Domain boundary disappeared, Qin could quickly conquer the Grassy World and the Half-Beast World. However, there seemed to be something missing. Zhao Fu found that he seemed to have missed something in the Elf World next to the Grassy World. Now, that he could bury a chess piece in the Half-Beast World, he had to bury a chess piece in the Elf World as well in preparation for the future. After all, once Qin attacked the Grassy World, the two worlds next to the Grassy World would not just stand by and watch, and they would definitely attack Qin. As such, he had to bury a chess piece in the Elf World to prepare for the future. After leaving the Lelai Kingdom, Zhao Fu headed to the Elf World to gather information about the Elf World. Burying a chess piece was not a simple matter and could not be done casually. First of all, there were all kinds of requirements. The first was potential. They must have the value to be cultivated by Qin, which was the qualification to be a chess piece of Qin. Now, almost all of them were chess pieces of country. Zhao Fu almost didn't care about the forces under a country. Secondly, it could be concealed, which meant that it was not easy to be discovered. Qin could control it secretly, so that Qin could achieve his goal. Then there were the forces that were easier to control. If the forces were too stubborn, Qin would not be able to subdue them. Instead, the plan would be leaked. There were also many other conditions, such as geographical location, relations with neighboring countries, and the internal situation of the force. Therefore, finding a suitable chess piece was rather complicated. It was impossible to do so without preparation. You needed to collect a large amount of information. A few days later, Zhao Fu made a detailed selection and found a target. Just as he was about to go, he passed by a city and found that it was quite chaotic. After asking around, he found out that there was an ancient tomb hundreds of kilometers away from the city, and it was said that there were many good things inside. It seemed that someone had obtained epic-grade equipment, which was worth millions of gold coins. This was quite attractive to even city lords, so it was no wonder why so many people were in a hurry to leave the city. Zhao Fu understood and felt quite interested. However, because he had things to do, he did not want to go. Suddenly, the killing heart sword, which was the clear sable sword, slightly trembled within the sword mark, as if it wanted Zhao Fu to go. This was the first time it had reacted like this. The clear sable sword was ranked second on China's 10 great swords, and it was a sword that had existed in history. It was not as legendary as the Xinyuan sword, but it was still a treasured sword of legends and had powerful spirituality. It seemed that there was something there that attracted it. After thinking about it, Zhao Fu asked for the location and turned into a ray of light as he flew out. Within a valley, over 10,000 people were engaged in a chaotic battle. On the other side of the valley, there was a massive hole in a stone wall. From time to time, 10 or so rays of light would shoot out, and everyone would fight over them. These rays of light were all treasures, and they were all at least gold grade. There were also a few legendary gray treasures. In actuality, some people had already entered the cave, and the people outside were all unimportant people. 4 or 5 city lords gave off powerful auras as they guarded the entrance, stopping these people from trying to enter the cave. Boom! A powerful aura descended from the sky as an elf wearing golden clothes descended from the sky. Looking at the chaotic scene, his expression was cold as he said with a trace of arrogance, I'm the Muse family's third young master. All of you scram. This place is under the Muse family's control." Hearing the Muse family's name, everyone's expressions fell. After all, the Muse family was the most prestigious family in this kingdom, and their power was not inferior to a true royal family. However, the Muse family's people were simply too domineering. This place was clearly an ownerless treasure zone, and they had not even entered. They were just waiting outside for some treasures, yet they did not allow them to enter and said that this was their place. Everyone felt quite furious, but thinking about how terrifying the Muse family was, they endured it. After all, going against the Muse family was going against the entire kingdom, and they would not dare to do such a thing unless they did not want to live anymore. Seeing that these people were so slow to react, a trace of killing intent flashed in the golden-clothed young man's eyes as he said, "You lowly commoners deserve to die." Swish, 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 the golden-clothed young man waved his hand, and dozens of massive leaves giving off sharp, cold lights shot out. People were cut in half at the waist, and pained cries sounded out as blood flew everywhere. In just an instant, over 1,000 people had died. The remaining people were so scared that they did not dare to stay and hurriedly ran away. The city lords guarding the cave looked quite unsightly, and they looked at each other before one of them came up and bowed as he said, "Third young master, Sir Corey is searching for treasures inside. Our Sir Corey is searching for treasures inside, and this place is also Sir Corey's territory." "Pah!" A loud slap sounded out as the city lord who had come up to speak flew back, his face red and swollen. The golden-clothed young man coldly laughed. "Who does that Corey think he is? Does he dare to compare to the Muse family? You dare to use him to scare this young master? If you dare to say such a thing again, this young master will take your dog life." The city lord who had been slapped flying had a reddened face, and he suppressed the humiliation and lowered his head, not daring to say anything. The remaining city lords also lowered their heads and retreated to the side. The golden-clothed young man disdainfully coldly laughed and was about to fly into the cave when something unexpected happened. Boom! A river-like aura descended from the sky, and everyone felt as if they had fallen into a demonic abyss. Their bodies and souls were filled with terror, and the golden-clothed young man's expression fell. He turned and saw a black-cloaked figure appear in the sky. The black-cloaked figure waved his hand, and the golden-clothed young man and the city lords were sent flying. They crashed to the ground and coughed up a large mouthful of blood. Chapter 1046. The golden-clothed young man fell to the ground and looked at Zhao Fu fiercely as he said, "Do you know who I am? You dared to injure me. The Muse family won't let you off. You're dead." Zhao Fu stood in the air and disdainfully laughed. Zhao Fu did not fear a large family from a barony kingdom. If it was an ordinary kingdom or dukedom, Zhao Fu might feel some fear, but this young man did not have the qualifications. Since he was seeking death, Zhao Fu would help him. Boom! Zhao Fu stretched out a hand and grabbed at the air. The space seemed to explode as a formless hand grabbed the golden-clothed young man. The golden-clothed young man looked terrified. He had been completely unrestrained in this kingdom, and he had never thought that someone would dare to kill him. Bang! The golden-clothed young man wanted to say something, but the formless hand crushed him, causing him to explode. His body turned into a bloody mist, and only an official seal remained. This official seal was useless to Zhao Fu, and it did not have the same effect as a wasted city lord seal. Otherwise, Zhao Fu could have fused city lord seals into beasts, making them even more powerful. The surrounding city lords looked terrified and obediently knelt on the ground, not moving at all. Since this person dared to kill the golden-clothed young man, he definitely looked down on the Muse family's power. How could they dare to offend such a person? Moreover, even if they wanted to attack, they did not have the strength to do so. After all, they were not as strong as the golden-clothed young man, and the golden-clothed young man had been instantly killed. Zhao Fu looked at them, and seeing that they were tactful, he did not attack. He did not have to worry about his identity being exposed. He was just passing by and would not come back again. Moreover, The people who had escaped already knew of Zhao Fu's existence. Facing Zhao Fu's demon-like gaze, the city lords trembled and felt incredibly terrified. How could such a terrifying person suddenly appear? It was simply too terrifying. Zhao Fu's eyes lit up as he looked at Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu turned into a ray of light and flew past the city lords and into the cave. The ground was paved with stone bricks, and there were some faint carvings on the walls. A cold and gloomy aura surged out, and it seemed to be an ancient tomb. Zhao Fu did not mind these things and flew deeper into the ancient tomb. Finally, he arrived at a large hall that was hundreds of meters tall and thousands of meters wide. The walls were blood red as if they had been painted with blood, and they gave off a dense stench of blood. To Zhao Fu's surprise, Zhao Fu originally thought that he would meet a few more people here, such as the lord that those people mentioned before. But when he entered, there was only a pile of dismembered corpses. There was no living person. At the very center of the hall, there was a vertical crack from which blood was constantly flowing out. Swish, 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 10 or so rays of light shot out from the crack, and Zhao Fu stretched out his hand, and a wave of energy flowed out, forming a formless wall that blocked the rays of light. The rays of light turned into treasures, all of which were gold-grade and incredibly ancient. The scene in front of him made Zhao Fu feel quite strange. Moreover, there were dismembered corpses all around him, proving that this place was not as safe as it seemed. Just as Zhao Fu was about to go up and take a look at the crack exploded out with a powerful suction force, sucking Zhao Fu into it. His vision blurred, and Zhao Fu arrived in another world. This world was completely blood red, and the sky was covered with cracks as if it would collapse at any moment. The ground was also cracked, and thick blood flowed everywhere, creating a desolate and deathly silence. Suddenly, countless traces of blood red qi seemed to have a mind of their own and flowed toward Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu's gaze became serious, and his emperor's domain spread out, blocking the blood-red qi outside. Kill, 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 kill. However, at that moment, an intense killing intent flooded into Zhao Fu's mind, and Zhao Fu felt as if his head had exploded. An intense killing intent exploded out from Zhao Fu's body like a wild gale, and Zhao Fu's eyes became blood-red as a blood-red flame appeared around his body. Within the sword mark, the clear sable sword excitedly trembled and gave off a clear sword hum as a powerful blood-red light filled the sword mark space. The other sword spirits' expressions fell because they could feel that the clear sable sword was absorbing that berserk killing intent and starting to corrode them. Roar, roar, roar. Dragon's roars sounded out from Zhao Fu's body as the Qin royal seal automatically protected its owner, exploding out with a terrifying nation power. Zhao Fu's sovereign bloodline quickly devoured the berserk killing intent, and the phoenix crystal within his body gave off large amounts of golden light. The sword within the sword mark space also gave off their own powers, and powerful sword lights shot out of the sword mark space. There seemed to be tens of thousands of sword lights shooting out from the back of Zhao Fu's right hand. Luckily, Zhao Fu was able to suppress the berserk killing intent, and his eyes became clear again. His back was covered with cold sweat, and he felt a lingering fear. That killing intent was simply too terrifying. He had resisted the blood-red qi, but that killing intent had still seeped in, almost causing Zhao Fu to lose his mind and turn into a monster filled with killing intent. Moreover, that killing intent was not something that just anyone could withstand. Ordinary people with low strength would have their bodies directly collapsed, and their souls would have been destroyed by that killing intent. This was the reason why there were a pile of corpses outside. They had most likely accidentally breathed in the blood-red qi, and their bodies had been unable to withstand that terrifying killing intent, causing them to collapse. Although Zhao Fu had calmed down, the clear sable sword within the sword mark was still abnormally excited, and it recklessly absorbed that berserk killing intent. The clear sable sword was a sword of benevolence, and it was not used to kill. However, because of its heart's eye, Zhao Fu could not kill people at all. Whenever he killed someone, his heart would feel intense pain. So Zhao Fu had changed its attributes, turning it into a sword of slaughter. There was a saying that only a tree that took root in hell could grow to heaven and bloom the purest flowers. Similarly, only a tree that grew in heaven could bear the evilest fruits. Zhao Fu understood this, and he understood why the clear sable sword was so excited. Xing! Suddenly, a ferocious blood-red sword light containing immense power slashed toward Zhao Fu from the left, and the air seemed to be split in half. Zhao Fu's expression slightly changed, and he stretched out his left hand as 9 black dragons floated out of his body. His emperor's domain became 10 or so times more powerful. Boom! The blood-red sword light slammed against the black energy barrier, resulting in a massive explosion, and the impact turned into a wild gale that blew out. Crack! A clear sound rang out as a few small cracks appeared on Zhao Fu's emperor's domain, and the blood-red sword light's power gradually disappeared. Zhao Fu turned and saw a figure appear on his left. This figure was a middle-aged elf, but he looked quite strange. His eyes were blood-red, and there were fangs in his mouth. His expression was cold as he tilted his head and looked at Zhao Fu. His body gave off a powerful blood-red qi, and he held a blood-red sword. The blood-red sword had a few tentacles that stabbed into his arm, causing the sword to fuse with his body. Chapter 1047. At that moment, the golden dragon, who was within Zhao Fu's body, suddenly thought of something and said, "I understand what's going on. This is the killing sword world." Zhao Fu felt quite startled. He had never heard of such a thing before and wanted to ask about it. The elf once again attacked, and his body blurred as he suddenly appeared in front of Zhao Fu. He raised his blood-red sword and slashed down at Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu immediately retreated, and the terrifying sword slammed into the ground. It was as if a massive force had slammed into the ground, causing the ground to crumble and rocks to fly everywhere as a massive crater appeared. After missing, the elf kicked off the ground and continued to rush at Zhao Fu like a black blur. Zhao Fu coldly harumphed and took out the Death Disaster Sword. He sent massive amounts of Emperor's power into it, causing the Death Disaster Sword to give off an intense deathly light as he slashed out with a shocking deathly aura. The elf completely disregarded this and gripped his sword as he rushed over and also slashed out, sending out a blood-red sword light toward Zhao Fu. Bang! A muffled explosion sounded out as the elf was sent flying. Even though the blood-red qi could increase one's battle strength, Zhao Fu's strength was much greater than the elf's, so the elf was not a match for Zhao Fu. After being sent flying, the elf crashed to the ground and coughed up a large mouthful of blood before standing up again. Boom! A powerful aura exploded out as a blood-red flame erupted around the elf's body, and the blood-red qi in the surroundings started to flow towards him. The golden dragon hurriedly said, "Hurry and kill him, or else it'll be troublesome." Zhao Fu nodded and stretched out a hand towards the golden dragon. The golden pupil in his left eye widened and quickly spun. Clang, clang, clang. The chains gave off massive power as they flew towards the elf. The elf dodged as she continuously slashed out with her blood-red sword, sending out blood-red arcs of sword light that destroyed the incoming chains. However, even more chains flew towards him, and the elf roared as the blood-red flame around his body burned even brighter. He vigorously slashed out, and thousands of sword lights shot out, cutting the countless chains into pieces. Puff! However, at this moment, Zhao Fu suddenly appeared behind him and pierced his heart with his sword. However, the elf turned around and slashed at Zhao Fu. This caused Zhao Fu to be astonished. I clearly pierced his heart, so why is he still able to move? It's as if nothing happened to him. What's going on? In the face of the elf's backhand slash, Zhao Fu wanted to jump back, but he retreated more than 10 meters. The golden dragon said, "He's only at the first transformation of sword obsession. You need to shatter his body to truly kill him, otherwise you won't be able to kill him." Whoosh! Just as the golden dragon finished speaking, the fairy once again charged at Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu coldly harumphed as he raised the death disaster sword and exploded out with all of his power. A gray light shot into the sky, and Zhao Fu slashed down. Boom! A terrifying sword light slashed out, seeming to slash apart everything in the surroundings. The fairy's body was devoured by the sword light, and after everything settled, a 1,000-meter-long sword gash appeared on the ground. The fairy had already been turned into a pile of dismembered corpses. What did you say about the killing sword world? Now that he had killed the fairy, Zhao Fu had time to ask the golden dragon. The golden dragon replied, "It was something from a long time ago, before the Heaven Murder Empire rose up. The Heaven Awakened world was the main world, and above it was the godly spirit world, and below it was the underworld. There were also many small worlds attached to the main world. Some of these small worlds were big, and some were small, and they could be compared to ordinary worlds. However, they were not external worlds and had been split off from the Heaven Awakened world by some sort of power or had been created by some sort of existence. The Killing Sword world was originally called the Sword World, and legend said that it was formed from celestial sword. It contained a supreme sword intent and was one of the cultivation holy lands for countless sword cultivators. The Sword World also had a master, who was called the Sword Master. This was something that the Sword World chose, and after a Sword Master died, it would choose a sword cultivator to become the next Sword Master. Those who could become Sword Masters naturally had great talent in the way of the sword and were peerless geniuses among sword cultivators. However, after the 137th Sword Master appeared, everything changed. The 137th Sword Master was a world-shaking genius who not only had a supreme sword body, but his comprehension of the way of the sword far surpassed that of ordinary people. However, for some reason, the 137th Sword Master fell into the demonic path and went completely mad. The sword world changed because of him, falling into the demonic path and giving birth to a killing essence, which fused with his own sword intent, forming a killing sword intent. This sword intent focused on killing, and the killing intent surpassed the sword intent, causing the sword world to become the killing sword world. The entire sword world had changed because of him, falling into the demonic path and giving birth to a killing essence. It then fused with his sword intent, forming a killing sword intent. This sword intent focused on killing, and the killing intent surpassed sword intent. The sword world had become a killing sword world. After the killing sword world was formed, it caused the Heaven Awakened world to go through abnormal changes. A blood-red color spread across hundreds of domains, and a massive sword aura spread out from the sky, causing countless worlds to feel terrified. The people in the sword world were all controlled by that killing sword intent, and they all fell into the demonic Tao, which is what happened to the elf you saw just now. That state is called sword obsession, where the person and the sword fuse into one, and their body is controlled by the sword. They become a monster that only knows how to kill, and they are even more terrifying than ordinary sword demons. The more powerful the killing sword intent you absorb, the more terrifying it is. As such, it is split into a few levels from first transformation to ninth transformation. First transformation is when the body is controlled by the killing sword intent, and it is the weakest. However, as you can see, that elf is already quite difficult to kill. Even attacking its vitals did not kill it. Only by destroying its body can it truly be killed. With every transformation, one's power will increase by many times, and the body will go through changes. Both the person and the sword will evolve. Those who go through the second transformation not only have to destroy their body, but they also have to destroy their soul, or else they can recover over a long period of time. Even if the body of those who go through the third transformation is destroyed, they can quickly recover and maintain an undying state. Their soul will also become incredibly powerful and will be difficult to kill. Those who go through the fourth transformation are almost unkillable and can only be sealed. Their body will quickly recover, and their soul will become a sword soul. It is said that the 137th Sword Master has gone through the ninth transformation and has terrifying power like that of a celestial. Hearing this, Zhao Fu could not help but gulp. He actually had celestial power, and celestials were existences at the peak of this world. They were above countless godly spirits, and they could decide the life and death of billions of creatures. That power was unimaginably terrifying, and just thinking about it made Zhao Fu feel quite excited. Chapter 1048. What about what happened afterwards? Why did the Killing Sword world end up like this? Zhao Fu asked the Golden Dragon. The Golden Dragon slightly sighed and said, "As you can see, this is the end of the Killing Sword world. Those who go into sword obsession will only become monsters of slaughter." Back then, countless people who had gone into sword obsession had rushed out of the Killing Sword world and caused a catastrophe in the Heaven Awakened world. Tens of thousands of worlds have been affected, and a few true celestials had appeared to stop this catastrophe. Those who had gone into sword obsession had been killed, and even the 137th Sword Master had been killed by a few celestials. The Killing Sword world had also been blasted apart. This was most likely a small shard of the Killing Sword world, and it was most likely the only shard left. After all, with Celestial's power, even the source of the world would collapse, and nothing would be left. The fact that this shard had survived was a miracle. After hearing the Golden Dragon's words, Zhao Fu sank into his thoughts. What should he do now? His first thought was to leave this place and seal the crack. He would destroy the ancient tomb so that no one would be able to find this place. This Killing Sword intent had caused even Zhao Fu to lose control, and even though Zhao Fu's power was monstrous, he had almost been controlled. If it was an ordinary person, they would not have been able to resist at all. His second thought was about the benefits here. If he could use such a dangerous thing, it would be of great help to Qin. There were still some treasures left, which were things that had flown out through the crack. Zhao Fu did not care too much about them, as most of them were things that he did not care about. Now, even Zhao Fu could not make up his mind, so he asked the Golden Dragon for advice. After all, it knew much more about this than Zhao Fu. The Golden Dragon sank into his thoughts and was not in a hurry to reply to Zhao Fu. Only after a while did it say, "Zhao Fu, this is just a small fragment and shouldn't be too dangerous. This is just a small fragment, so it shouldn't be too dangerous. However, you still have to be careful and test it out. If it doesn't work, quickly retreat." Hearing this, Zhao Fu nodded and thought about it before taking out the clear sable sword, which was incredibly excited. Just as the clear sable sword was taken out, it continuously trembled and gave off sword hums as it absorbed the surrounding blood-red qi. The blood-red qi quickly gathered towards the clear sable sword. An intense killing intent came from the clear sable sword. Even though this killing intent was incredibly berserk, it could be controlled, and Zhao Fu let out a sigh of relief. Perhaps the clear sable sword would be useful later. So Zhao Fu took it out and unleashed his Emperor's domain with all of his strength. The 9 black dragons surrounded Zhao Fu, protecting him as Zhao Fu started to carefully investigate the surrounding space. Zhao Fu first started to scout the outer regions. He could already defend against the blood-red qi's killing intent, so there shouldn't be much danger in the outer regions. In just a few hours, Zhao Fu quickly investigated the surroundings and found that this place was not very big. It was only a bit bigger than a region, and the surroundings were pretty much the same. There was a blood-red sky, a shattered ground, and blood flowed everywhere. There were no living creatures, only deathly silence. After not encountering any danger, Zhao Fu let out a sigh of relief. The clear sable sword followed Zhao Fu around the surroundings, excitedly guiding Zhao Fu towards the inside. However, Zhao Fu returned to where he had been because he had been killing that golden-clothed young man for a while. He had never thought that he would be here for so long, and it was likely that the people from that kingdom would soon arrive. Zhao Fu thought about it and decided to hide the matter of the Killing Sword world for now before thinking about his next step. Boom, boom, boom. Massive sounds sounded out as not only did the cave entrance collapse, but the entire mountain also caved in. This caused the expressions of the city lords waiting outside to fall. Their Sirkori was still inside, and it seemed that he had met with misfortune. That terrifying existence had not come out, so they did not know what had happened. In actuality, some people had sent news back, and many people were hurrying over. They were worried about Sir Corey's safety, and the Muse family's third young master had died here. This was a big matter, and they had to report it to the higher-ups. However, now that the mountain had collapsed, they started to panic. Following this, a large group of soldiers arrived, and there were over 100 city lords. Before, this would have been a small matter, but because of the golden-clothed young man's death, the entire kingdom was shaken. For over 100 city lords to come, it could be seen just how powerful the Muse family was in this kingdom. Following this, they found the city lords and asked them about the situation in detail. They could not help but feel quite shocked because according to what they said, that person had the power to instantly kill the golden-clothed young man, and the golden-clothed young man had the official seal of a capital city. That person was incredibly powerful, and he did not care about the Muse family at all. After all, the golden-clothed young man had already told them who he was, yet that person had still dared to kill him. That person's identity was not simple at all. Most of the Muse family's people knew their own limits. Even though they could do whatever they wanted within the barony kingdom, in front of true experts, they were not worth mentioning. Facing this matter, the Muse family's higher-ups felt quite troubled. They were furious that that person had killed someone from the Muse family without any qualms, and they were also afraid of offending someone that the Muse family could not afford to offend. If that happened, the entire Muse family would be doomed. They first carefully looked around and found that that person had most likely left through other methods, so they could only retreat. At the same time, they remembered this enmity and would take revenge in the future. They were only a bit curious about the ancient tomb, but they did not feel that there was anything good in it. Even if there was anything good, that person would have taken it. Zhao Fu then looked into the depths of the mountain. Zhao Fu had used a magic formation to hide this place, and the crack had been stabilized by Zhao Fu using many tools, making it easier to control it. Zhao Fu had no idea what had happened. Why had a shard of the Killing Sword world appeared here, and why a crack had appeared in an ancient tomb? Zhao Fu was not sure about any of this. After entering the crack, Zhao Fu started to look around the Killing Sword world. A day later, Zhao Fu had finished looking around. There was no danger, and there were still no living creatures. The surroundings were deathly silent, and he had obtained some gold-grade items. There were over 10,000 of them, as well as dozens of legendary grade items. These things had all been very powerful, but after countless years of corrosion, they had fallen to their current grades. It was like the underground passageway, but he had picked them up for free and did not need to fight. Zhao Fu thought about it and decided to head to the innermost regions. At the same time, Zhao Fu once again became more careful. A massive amount of ghostly qi flowed out, forming a gray defensive barrier. There were 6 diagrams on it, the 6 paths defensive barrier. Chapter 1049. After preparing everything, Zhao Fu carefully entered the depths of the Killing Sword world. There was dense blood-red qi all around him, and he could only see 3 or 4 meters around him. It was deathly silent inside, but it was even more terrifying than outside, and it gave off pure killing intent. Shing, shing, shing. Sword hums rang out as over 10 figures appeared within the blood mist. These figures were all semi-transparent, and everything else about them was blurry. However, a pair of blood-red eyes were particularly eye-catching, and they held a black and blood-red sword in their hands. The Golden Dragon said, "These are sword souls after going into sword obsession. Zhao Fu, you need to be careful." Zhao Fu nodded, and the 10 or so sword souls turned their blood-red eyes to look at Zhao Fu. In that instant, they charged at Zhao Fu incredibly quickly, seeming to appear in front of Zhao Fu in the next second. They slashed out with their swords, sending out crescent-shaped blood-red sword lights. At that moment, Zhao Fu gripped the clear sable sword, which was trembling excitedly, and slashed out, sending out a massive blood-red crescent, giving off an incredibly sharp aura. Boom! The blood-red crescent flashed past, entering the blood-red fog. It was as if space itself had been slashed apart, and the sword lights from the sword souls, as well as their bodies, were all slashed apart. The sword souls' bodies started to become hazy before disappearing, leaving behind illusory swords that floated in the air. These illusory swords looked like normal swords, but they were illusory and looked different, as if they were all people. Zhao Fu was quite shocked that the clear sable sword had become so powerful. After absorbing so much of the berserk killing intent, the sword itself seemed to have grown many times stronger. Zhao Fu wanted to take a look at the illusory sword's information, but the golden dragon said, "These are all sword soul essences left behind by sword souls. They can be fused into swords, turning an ordinary sword into a sword of slaughter." The clear sable sword continuously trembled, seeming to want to devour these sword soul essences. Zhao Fu thought about it and pointed at the illusory swords floating in the air. Whoosh! A massive attractive force spread out, and the illusory swords were all sucked into the clear sable sword. In that instant, the clear sable sword exploded out with a powerful aura of slaughter and gave off a brilliant blood-red light. Zhao Fu held the clear sable sword, and a massive wave of killing intent flowed into Zhao Fu's mind, causing his eyes to become blood-red. The golden dragon could not help but say, "Zhao Fu, if the clear sable sword continues to evolve like this, it will be very difficult for you to control it. Even though the clear sable sword's heart has been implanted into your heart and you can control, the killing intent is too powerful, and you won't be able to in your current." Zhao Fu felt quite startled and asked, "Is there any way to increase my control over the clear sable sword?" The clear sable sword was incredibly powerful and seemed to be able to deal great damage to the sword souls here. It was the best item for exploring the depths of the killing sword world, and if he gave up on it, it would be quite difficult in the future. Zhao Fu did not want to give up on the clear sable sword, but he did not have enough power to resist that killing intent. As such, he could only ask the golden dragon what he could do. The golden dragon thought about it and said, "There are a few ways, but you'll have to pay a price." Zhao Fu let out a sigh of relief, and a trace of a smile appeared on his face. It was good that there was a way to deal with this, and Zhao Fu continued to explore the depths of the killing sword world. Zhao Fu did not directly rush into the depths. As the deeper he went, the denser the blood-red qi became, to the point that it was almost liquefied. Zhao Fu's instinctive sense of danger became stronger, and he did not dare to directly go in. He planned to increase the clear sable sword's power. It was now Zhao Fu's strongest trump card. Xing! A blood-red crescent containing terrifying power slashed out, killing 10 or so sword souls. The sword souls dissipated, leaving behind 10 or so illusory swords floating in the air. Zhao Fu raised his sword and pointed, and the illusory swords were absorbed into the clear sable sword. In that instant, the clear sable sword gave off hundreds of sword hums, and thousands of meters of blood-red light shined out from the sword. The clear sable sword gave off an even greater killing intent, and Zhao Fu's eyes once again became blood-red, filled with pure killing intent. The golden dragon said, "You can start the first refinement." Zhao Fu suppressed the killing intent in his mind, and his eyes returned to normal. Hearing the golden dragon's words, he nodded, and the first refinement was a blood refinement. Zhao Fu first used his power to cause the clear sable sword to hover in the air. Following this, Zhao Fu cut his wrist and let out his blood as he controlled it to flow into the clear sable sword. The clear sable sword absorbed Zhao Fu's blood and continuously trembled, giving off a joyful emotion. The sword itself slowly went through changes, and a black dragon inscription appeared on its spine. Apart from giving off a cold, killing intent, the clear sable sword also gave off the noble aura of an emperor. Zhao Fu had let out quite a bit of blood, causing his face to become quite pale. However, holding the clear sable sword, he still gave a pleased smile. Because this place was filled with danger, Zhao Fu did not dare to continue onwards. He stayed where he was and ate a few spirit medicines to recover his strength. A few days later, a storm of sword chi giving off a ferocious and sharp aura inundated the hundreds of sword souls. Under such a massive amount of sword chi, their bodies gradually turned into nothingness, leaving behind illusory swords. Zhao Fu once again pointed with the clear sable sword, and this time, the clear sable sword did not give off any suction force. Instead, it was like a king among swords, giving off a king's aura. The hundreds of illusory swords slightly trembled and gave off an aura of submission as they automatically flew into the clear sable sword. By now, there were over 1,000 sword souls fused into the clear sable sword, and in that instant, the 1,000 swords hummed in unison, causing leaves to fall like rain. Boom! The clear sable sword once again exploded out with a powerful aura, and a blood-red flame appeared on the sword. A terrifying aura blew out like a wild gale, and the ground was unable to withstand this power and started to crack. At that moment, the golden dragon said, "Zhao Fu, begin the second refinement." Zhao Fu slightly hesitated about this second refinement, but he quickly made a decision. He controlled the clear sable sword to float in the air before taking out the royal wood sword and enduring the pain as he cut off one of his arms. Following this, he used the royal wood sword to quickly heal the wound and consumed a large number of regeneration pills, causing Zhao Fu's arm to quickly grow back. At that moment, Zhao Fu used his power to control the arm that he had just cut off and send it towards the clear sable sword. The second refinement required a certain part of the body, and this was the price that the golden dragon had to pay. Chapter 1050. At this moment, Zhao Fu felt as if the clear sable sword was a part of his body, and he felt incredibly familiar with it. Moreover, his control over the clear sable sword had become even stronger. That incredibly terrifying and berserk-killing intent was also under control. This was not something that Zhao Fu could directly control, but something that he could only control through the clear sable sword. Otherwise, with Zhao Fu's current strength, he would have long since been corroded by the killing intent. After resting for half a month and recovering from his injuries, Zhao Fu continued to explore the interior. Xing, xing, xing. Zhao Fu raised the clear sable sword, and a massive killing intent exploded out. Blood-red flames appeared on the sword as sword souls holding swords appeared around Zhao Fu. There were over 1,000 of them, and they surrounded Zhao Fu like stars surrounding the moon. In front of him, there were also over 1,000 sword souls giving off cold, killing intent as they rushed over. They gave off terrifying sounds, and they were like massive swords filled with killing intent. Boom! Zhao Fu slashed down, and the sword souls around him flooded out, giving off terrifying power as they rushed towards the incoming sword souls. Xing, xing, xing. After the sword hums sounded out, only illusory swords were left floating in the air. Zhao Fu's sword souls were incredibly ferocious, and as soon as they surged over, they killed the ordinary sword souls with a single strike. Zhao Fu casually swung the clear sable sword, and it gave off a might that was a combination of an emperor's aura and killing intent. Under this terrifying might, the 1,000 illusory swords gave off mournful cries and flew towards the clear sable sword. Bang! The 1,000 sword souls fused into the clear sable sword, and at that moment, there were over 10,000 sword souls fused into the clear sable sword. It exploded out with a terrifying aura, and the air seemed to explode. Zhao Fu's hand, which was holding the clear sable sword, was blasted away. The clear sable sword floated in the air and gave off a powerful aura, causing wild gales to blow. The space around it started to twist, and a large crater appeared in the ground. Xing, xing, xing. The 10,000 swords hummed in unison, and the sound seemed to corporeal as it spread out, destroying everything in the surrounding 10,000 meters. It resounded throughout the entire space, and even Zhao Fu was knocked back. Countless traces of blood-red chi madly gathered, forming blood-red crystals around the clear sable sword. They gave off a faint red light, and gave off a devilish beauty. Zhao Fu, hurry up and start the third refinement and accept the clear sable sword's sword heart. Otherwise, the clear sable sword will completely break free from your control. When that happens, the sword heart will become a killing heart and devour you, the golden dragon hurriedly said. Zhao Fu did not hesitate and stretched out his hand towards the clear sable sword, which was floating in the air, and started to control it. Fortunately, he had sword heart and the 2 Daos he had refined, so Zhao Fu was able to quickly control the clear sable sword. Following this, a pained expression appeared on Zhao Fu's face as he started to split his soul. The third refinement was soul refinement, which used Zhao Fu's soul to refine the clear sable sword. A black and gold mote of light that was as big as a mung bean flew out from between Zhao Fu's eyebrows and floated into the clear sable sword. Zhao Fu closed his eyes and calmed down as he accepted the sword heart, which was the eye in Zhao Fu's heart, and fused it into his soul. Boom! Boom! 2 explosions sounded out as 2 terrifying auras exploded out. The clear sable sword gave off an incredibly domineering emperor's aura, while Zhao Fu gave off a terrifying sword intent. The clear sable sword went from being a sword of benevolence to an emperor's sword of slaughter. Zhao Fu was not a sword cultivator and only liked to use swords. He did not have much talent in the way of the sword, and compared to the number 1 swordsman Gania in the Qin Empire, Zhao Fu was much weaker. Now, he had obtained killing sword intent. Sword intent was something that only high-grade cultivators could comprehend, and even Gania had not comprehended it yet. However, Zhao Fu had obtained it before him. However, this sword intent was not something that Zhao Fu had comprehended, but something that the clear sable sword had given him. It was a sword intent that came from his soul, and it was incredibly powerful. Zhao Fu felt as if the clear sable sword was his clone because Zhao Fu had fused his blood, flesh, and soul into it. Moreover, he had fused it with the clear sable sword's heart's eye. Out of all of Zhao Fu's swords, the clear sable sword was the sword that was the most compatible with Zhao Fu, and no other sword could compare to it. After resting for a while, Zhao Fu carefully headed towards his final destination. Within the dense blood-red mist, sword hums continuously sounded out as countless sword souls flooded over, giving off terrifying sounds. The sword aura they gave off was incredibly sharp, and it seemed as if nothing could stop them. There were many sword souls here, and they were even more powerful than the ones outside. However, now that Zhao Fu held the clear sable sword, he did not fear these sword souls or the killing sword intent at all. Facing the countless sword souls, Zhao Fu smirked and sent his power into the clear sable sword. Countless traces of blood-red qi condensed into blood-red crystals, and Zhao Fu stabbed the sword into the ground. Boom! A massive explosion sounded out as a massive wave of sword qi exploded out from the ground. The terrifying power instantly spread out, and everything in the surrounding 10 kilometers was shattered by the sword qi. After everything settled, a 10-kilometer-wide crater appeared in the ground, and there were illusory swords floating above it. Zhao Fu smiled and casually waved his sword, causing the countless illusory swords to fly towards the clear sable sword and fuse into it. Finally, Zhao Fu reached the depths of the crater, which was 100 kilometers wide. The ground had already turned into blood-red crystals, and there were massive crystals floating in the surroundings. Rays of sword light descended from the sky, creating a wondrous scene. Zhao Fu carefully stepped in, but a massive wave of killing intent flowed into his head from the soles of his feet. Zhao Fu's eyes once again became blood-red, and drops of blood flowed out of his eyes. Zhao Fu did not hesitate and immediately used the clear sable sword. A blood-red sword qi barrier floated out from the clear sable sword and covered Zhao Fu's body. Only then did the killing intent slowly disappear, and Zhao Fu let out a sigh of relief and continued onwards. A blood-red crystal mountain appeared in front of Zhao Fu. It was 10,000 meters tall and gave off a boundless cold aura. What Zhao Fu cared about was that there was a black and blood-red shard at the top of the mountain. This shard was most likely a shard of a sword, and it was only as big as 2 fingers. It was covered with cracks and seemed to have been corroded by time, and it looked quite ancient. It did not give off any powerful aura and only silently floated at the top of the mountain. The golden dragon said excitedly, "That's a killing sword world shard, and it's the core of this space." However, the shard's spirituality has been destroyed by a celestial's power, and after being corroded by time, its power has greatly weakened. Perhaps you can use it. Hearing the golden dragon's words, Zhao Fu felt quite happy. This was a power that had been destroyed by a celestial, and even though it had been greatly weakened, if Qin could use it, it would be even more useful to Qin than to Zhao Fu. Just thinking about it made him feel quite excited. Chapter 10:51. As Zhao Fu came closer, the 4 blood coffins seemed to be about to open. The golden dragon said, "Zhao Fu, hand your body to me and seal them first. With your strength, you won't be able to kill them. They're most likely at least at the 4th transformation of Sword Obsession." Zhao Fu thought about it and handed his body to the golden dragon. The golden dragon took over Zhao Fu's body, and a powerful aura exploded out. A golden flame burned around Zhao Fu's body, and the 5 different colored pupils in Zhao Fu's left eye became pure gold, giving off the might of an emperor. The Qin royal seal continuously trembled, and massive amounts of Qin's kingdom power entered Zhao Fu's body. The 9 black dragons around Zhao Fu became golden dragon. At that moment, Zhao Fu's aura completely changed, and he seemed to become a different person. He was no longer as domineering, calm, and mysterious as before, but was instead noble, cold, and peerless. He gave off a transcendent aura. Boom! The golden dragon extended a hand, and a 2-meter-wide golden magic formation appeared in front of his palm. The 5 golden pupils in his left eye quickly spun, and over 1,000,000 golden chains surged forth from the golden magic formation, shooting toward the 4 blood crystal coffins with ferocious might. At that moment, the 4 blood crystal coffins continuously trembled as a massive wave of blood-red qi flowed out, and the coffin lids were about to open. Zhao Fu, who was controlled by the golden dragon, gave a trace of an arrogant smile, and the 6 gray dots in his right eye were dyed gold. They quickly spun, and a massive wave of ghostly energy flowed out. Roar! 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 For ghosts that were hundreds of meters tall and gave off golden light appeared next to the 4 blood crystal coffins. They pressed down with all of their strength, pressing down on the blood crystal coffins. A few rays of blood-red sword qi flowed out of the blood crystal coffins, and they were incredibly sharp. In just an instant, they sliced the ghosts into pieces, but at that moment, countless golden chains arrived and wrapped around the 4 blood crystal coffins before dragging them underground. The 4 people in the coffins suddenly opened their blood-red eyes, and an even greater blood qi surged out. Zhao Fu, who was controlled by the golden dragon, chuckled. He stretched out his hand and pulled forcefully. The golden chains also pulled forcefully, pulling the 4 blood crystal coffins into the sealed space. Boom! The 4 blood crystal coffins had just been pulled into the sealed space, but they were unable to seal the 4 people. The 4 people exploded out with terrifying power, causing the entire sealed space to collapse. Zhao Fu, who was under the control of the golden dragon, remained calm. With a wave of his hand, tens of thousands of gold quality swords and hundreds of legendary quality swords flew out. The swords hovered in the sky, and under the golden dragon's control, they moved in an orderly manner, forming a sword qi formation. A massive sword qi storm swept out, and a sharp aura covered the entire space. Myriad swords seal. The golden dragon gave a loud shout and pointed his sword at the ground. Tens of thousands of swords descended, causing space to shatter. Time and space became chaotic, and everything trembled. Swish, swish, swish. The sword stabbed into the ground, and waves of sword energy shot into the sealed space. The countless waves of sword energy formed a sword chi formation and fused with the sealed space, causing the cracked sealed space to once again stabilize. The four people in the blood crystal coffins let out sharp howls, and massive waves of blood-red chi attacked the sealed space. However, the blood-red chi was turned into strands by the sealed space and entered the sword stabbed into the ground. All right, the sealing is complete. Not only can the 10,000 sword formation seal them, but it can also absorb their sword intent. When that time comes, you'll have tens of thousands of swords of the way of killing. The golden dragon said as he smiled to Zhao Fu before returning the body to Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu grinned, and seeing that things had been resolved, he asked curiously, "How do I use the Killing Sword World Shard?" The golden dragon replied excitedly, "You can now fuse the clear sable sword with the Killing Sword World Shard, and you will become the 138th Swordmaster. You can also be called the Emperor Killing Sword World's first Swordmaster. After all, the Killing Sword World has long since been destroyed and is just a small shard. Moreover, its power and spirituality are quite weak, and the core will be the clear sable sword instead of the original Killing Sword World Shard. As such, it can be called a new world. Because the clear sable sword has fused with your flesh, blood, and soul, it has become an Emperor's sword, and this space can be called the Emperor Killing Sword World. Of course, because it uses the Killing Sword World Shard as the foundation, all of the space's power belongs to the Killing Sword World, so you can continue to call it the Killing Sword World. You can also be called the 138th Swordmaster. Zhao Fu laughed. It was said that the 137th Swordmaster was incredibly terrifying and had even caused a few true immortals to descend. If he wanted to become the 138th Swordmaster, wouldn't he be too weak? It seemed that becoming the Swordmaster had been quite easy. In actuality, Zhao Fu had never thought that he would have such a relationship with the Killing Sword World and become the 138th Swordmaster. However, if the Killing Sword World could be used by Qin, that would be an incredibly good thing. Zhao Fu flew up to the 10,000-meter tall blood crystal mountain and followed the method that the golden dragon had given him. He first activated the Clear Sable Sword's Sword Soul domain. The Clear Sable Sword became even more excited and continuously trembled as it gave off waves of blood-red light. A 10,000-meter wide blood-red barrier giving off lightning-like power spread out, giving off a powerful aura of suppression. At the same time, illusory sword souls holding blood-red swords appeared within the barrier. Their blood-red eyes gave off icy killing intent, causing people to feel despair. Zhao Fu first used his power to control the Clear Sable Sword to move closer to the Killing Sword World Shard before cutting his wrist and letting out some blood. He fused the blood into the shard and strengthened their compatibility. Only then did he start to slowly fuse them together. Because the Killing Sword World had been heavily damaged and had been corroded over countless years, its power was incredibly weak. The shard started to shatter and fuse into the Clear Sable Sword. If it wasn't for the fact that the Killing Sword World Shard did not have much power, Zhao Fu would not have been able to fuse it at all. After all, that level of power was not something that Zhao Fu could control. Not only was the Clear Sable Sword unable to withstand the shard, but even Zhao Fu was unable to withstand that killing intent and would explode. Following this, the Killing Sword World Shard fused into the Clear Sable Sword, and the countless sword souls within the domain flowed into the Clear Sable Sword. The Sword Soul domain that the Clear Sable Sword had spread out was also retracted into the sword. Boom! A shocking explosion sounded out, and it was as if the heavens and earth were collapsing. Countless people outside heard this explosion, and a suffocating feeling of terror washed over them. The sky seemed to have been slashed apart by rays of sword chi, and boundless blood-red light covered the ground. Waves of icy killing intent flooded into the world, and in that moment, the heavens and earth fell into deathly silence, as if all creatures were trembling. Chapter 1052. The ancient stem domain had 1,240 or so worlds in total, and it was split into 4 sides. Qin City was at the western boundary of the ancient STEM domain. In the blood-red world, from the nobles to the ordinary people, under that terrifying killing intent, all of them collapsed to the ground and looked at the sky in terror. They did not know what was happening or why such terrifying abnormal signs had appeared. This killing intent could destroy all things and destroy the heavens and earth, and its power surpassed countless people's imaginations. Just the remnant might of the killing sword world had affected hundreds of worlds, and at its peak, it would be no exaggeration to say that it would devastate tens of thousands of worlds. No wonder Celestials would act to get rid of it. It was incredibly powerful. The ones in the worst state were the elf world. They were at the very bottom of that terrifying killing intent and bore the brunt of that killing intent's power. They all froze, and their gazes became dull as their eyes became blood-red, and blood continuously flowed out of their mouths. This was only because they had been affected by the killing intent and had not gone into sword obsession. The main thing was that the killing sword world shard did not have much power. Otherwise, if this killing intent caused everyone in the elf world to go into sword obsession, it would definitely lead to a heaven-toppling massacre. Just thinking about how many people there were in a world and how terrifying it was, one could imagine just how terrifying it was. Moreover, those who entered sword obsession would become much more powerful and would not be easy to kill. They would also evolve as they killed, and it would be a scene where not even a blade of grass would grow, leaving no living creatures behind. The countless elves in the elf world suffered from this killing intent, and their bodies would be corroded. There were both benefits and drawbacks. The benefit was that these elves could walk the path of slaughter, but the prerequisite was that they could control the corroding killing intent. If they could not control it, the killing intent would corrode their bodies and cause them to continuously weaken. Even the kings in the elf world were affected by the killing intent, and they all froze on the spot with blood-red eyes. However, they were kings and had their nation fate and fate dragons protecting them, so they did not suffer as much damage. At the same time, they tried to control this killing intent. The surrounding worlds were not affected as much as the elf world. Countless ordinary people collapsed to the ground, and the kings exploded out with their full strength to resist the killing intent. Their expressions were quite unsightly as they faced this abnormal sign. Now, the hundreds of worlds did not know what had caused such terrifying abnormal signs. Was it a natural phenomenon, or was it caused by someone? Most people believed that this was a natural phenomenon, which was why there was such terrifying power. It was not something that a person could cause, as this was a power that could intimidate all creatures in the world. However, if it was caused by a person, that person was simply too terrifying and would definitely cause a catastrophe that would change the entire ancient STEM domain. However, at this moment, when faced with the killing intent that could destroy even the heavens and earth, no one dared to believe that it was done by a human because they did not even dare to think about the consequences. The ancient STEM domain had 1,200 or so worlds in total, and among the surrounding domains, its strength was above average. This terrifying abnormal sign affected hundreds of worlds, so naturally, all of the ancient STEM domain's people, and even the nearby worlds could sense the terrifying ripples in the distance. In the western side of the ancient STEM domain, there were 5 kingdoms and one large sect, and the Bear Mountain Kingdom was one of them. A middle-aged man with thick hair stood on a high platform and looked at the devilish blood-red color in the sky. The terrifying killing intent that came from it caused his hands and feet to feel cold. He was the king of the Bear Mountain Kingdom, Xiong. Facing such a terrifying abnormal sign, Xiong expression was quite serious. This abnormal sign was simply too shocking, and even an existence like him felt a trace of fear. Just what had caused this? Did something happen there? If this matter goes out of control, it will be a terrifying disaster in the ancient STEM domain. We can't allow this to continue. We have to understand the situation. Send out this king's orders to head towards the abnormal sign as quickly as possible and find out the reason for it. The Bear Mountain Kingdom's army is to await further orders. Orders were sent out as the Bear Mountain Kingdom's experts moved out and headed to the boundary of the ancient stem domain. Soldiers were dressed in armor and held sharp weapons, and they were ready to enter battle at any moment. It could be seen how much importance the Bear Mountain Kingdom placed on this matter. After all, if a natural disaster erupted and they were not prepared, the Bear Mountain Kingdom would be heavily injured. Xiong Baishan's intuition told him that this was dangerous. It was not just the Bear Mountain Kingdom. The other kingdoms and sects also did the same. They sent out experts to investigate and prepared their armies to fight at any moment. Since the kingdoms were acting like this, the other kingdoms did not dare to be careless and also prepared their armies. Because they were in the West, they could sense how terrifying that killing intent was. Once it went out of control, it would be a catastrophe. This caused the western side of the ancient stem domain to be filled with an austere aura, and everyone prepared to deal with any danger. The factions in the eastern side of the ancient stem domain also sensed the terrifying ripples coming from the west. Even though they were quite far away from the abnormal signs, they could still sense how terrifying the abnormal signs were. Their hair stood on end as they felt an intense sense of danger. Just what has happened in the west? Why has such a terrifying abnormal sign appeared? Just what has caused it? The various factions also sent out their experts to the west to find out the reason. The factions in the northern side of the ancient stem domain took this matter quite seriously, and they felt that it was a catastrophe. That pure killing intent could almost drag people into the demonic path. A few people slightly sighed. I'm afraid something big is about to happen in the ancient stem domain. In the southern side of the ancient stem domain, on a 10,000-meter tall mountain peak that gave off a majestic aura, an ordinary-looking gray-robed elder looked towards the west with a profound gaze. He was the sect master of the Tao cultivation sect, which was the leader of the ancient stem domain's 5 great sects. Its power was unfathomably deep, and if it wasn't number 1 in the ancient stem domain, it was number 2. Sect master. The various factions have sent out experts to investigate the reason for the abnormal signs. How should our sect respond? A beautiful young woman said as she respectfully bowed to the elder. The gray-robed elder's expression was serious as he shook his head. There's no need to go. Even if we go, we won't be able to find out what's going on. Right now, the heaven's secrets there have fallen into chaos and are filled with killing intent. All of the ancient stem domain's fate, as well as the fate of the surrounding domains, has gathered there. I'm afraid that a peerless evil creature has appeared, and the ancient stem domain situation is truly going to change. Everyone will be dragged in, and unless we leave the ancient stem domain, we will not be able to escape this massive vortex. I wonder what has happened at the western boundary of the ancient stem domain in recent years for so many things to happen and for 10 or so higher beings to go. The ancient stem domain will have many troubles in the future. No, this sovereign should personally go and take a look. Chapter 1053. Within the Killing Sword world, Zhao Fu felt incredibly shocked as he resisted the terrifying aura that the clear sable sword gave off. The clear sable sword gave off a 100-meter tall blood-red flame, giving off boundless blood-red light that covered the entire Killing Sword world. Waves of powerful aura blew out like wild gales, causing the surrounding space to continuously twist and collapse. Shing! A massive sword hum sounded out throughout the entire Killing Sword world, causing the heavens and earth to tremble. In that moment, all of the blood-red chi madly flowed towards the clear sable sword, and some of the sword souls that Zhao Fu had not killed turned into illusory swords and flew over. The blood-red liquid on the ground was also absorbed into the clear sable sword. The blood-red crystal mountain and ground, as well as the floating blood-red crystals, all cracked and flew towards the clear sable sword in the sky. Boom! Everything flowed into the clear sable sword, causing its power to reach its peak, and it exploded out with an aura that seemed to reign over the heavens and earth. The already damaged Killing Sword world started to gradually collapse, and the sky and ground were gradually reduced to nothingness. The killing sword world's source energy quickly gathered towards the clear sable sword. The clear sable sword was a sword of slaughter, and it had fused with countless sword souls, making it extremely compatible with the killing sword world. Otherwise, it would not have been able to become the core of the killing sword world so easily. The region that had been as big as a region completely collapsed, and Zhao Fu and the clear sable sword stood in the air, surrounded by primordial chaos and giving off an extremely primordial aura. The clear sable sword looked like a true divine sword, standing in the air and giving off a blood-red sword light that was tens of thousands of meters long. It dispelled the primordial chaos in the surroundings and gave off a transcendent sword aura. Swish, 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 sword souls with hazy bodies and blood-red eyes appeared in the surroundings. They held blood-red swords and gave off killing intent, and there were over 100,000 of them, giving off a massive aura. At that moment, all of the sword souls knelt towards the clear sable sword in the air, acknowledging it as the master of the countless sword souls. The golden dragon said somewhat excitedly, "Zhao Fu, hurry up and hold the clear sable sword. That way, you'll become the sword master." Hearing this, Zhao Fu quickly walked forwards. Because the clear sable sword had been completely refined by Zhao Fu, the massive aura it gave off did not stop Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu arrived next to the clear sable sword and gripped its hilt. Immediately, Zhao Fu felt an unimaginable wave of killing intent enter his mind, causing his mind to rumble and go blank. The killing intent continuously corroded Zhao Fu's body, and this time, Zhao Fu's bloodline did not resist and instead absorbed the killing intent. Zhao Fu's eyes gradually became blood-red, and drops of blood continuously flowed out. A pair of blood-red sword-like pupils appeared in Zhao Fu's eye sockets. His left eye now had 6 pupils, and his right eye had another pupil. Zhao Fu's long hair gradually became blood-red, and a blood-red sword mark appeared on his forehead. 2 fangs grew out of his mouth, and his body gave off a massive killing intent, causing the space around him to freeze. Kill! Zhao Fu's body uncontrollably raised the clear sable sword and pointed it at the sky as he roared, sounding out in the surrounding tens of thousands of meters. Boom! A massive blood-red light containing unimaginable power tore through the primal chaos space and blasted through the 9 heavens. The heavens and earth seemed to be destroyed, and everything in the world seemed to tremble. In that moment, the experts from the ancient STEM domain who had dared to go felt their bodies freeze under this terrifying power. They felt as if they had fallen into a bottomless pit of ice, and a coldness that seemed to seep into their souls. It was not just them. Even some people at the center of the Heaven Awakened world sensed this, especially the factions that had been paying attention to Zhao Fu. Not only that, but the godly spirit world above also gave off a blood-red color filled with killing intent, and the underworld below was the same. This caused the countless godly spirits and underworld officials' expressions to become serious. They did not know what was happening in the Heaven Awakened world for it to affect them. I have something important to report. A person from the Heavenly Spirit Merchant Association said respectfully, with a trace of fear on his face. His voice was also very anxious as he spoke respectfully from outside the door. Within the room, a green-clothed elder did not know what was going on, but his expression slightly changed. This was because the person outside was in charge of observing the mysterious sovereign bloodline. For him to be so anxious, something big must have happened to the mysterious sovereign bloodline. The green-clothed elder let that person in. Looking at that person's pale face and the blood on his lips, the elder asked, "What happened?" That person told the green-clothed elder what had just happened. He had been observing the sovereign bloodline the entire time, but a wave of killing intent had suddenly flowed into his body, and he had expended a great deal of effort to get rid of that killing intent. The green-clothed elder's expression once again fell. What had been left in the Heaven Spirit Financial Group was just a few drops of that person's blood, which contained terrifying power. As long as one did not touch it, its power would not be released. However, these few drops of blood had given off such a powerful sense of danger, and the killing intent had domineeringly invaded one's body. This matter was not simple at all. The green-clothed elder immediately reported this matter, and a few major figures soon arrived. They saw that the orb of blood in the air gave off an intense killing intent. This killing intent was berserk and incredibly corrosive, and ordinary people's bodies would be directly invaded by it, turning into monsters that only knew how to kill. What has happened to that person recently? That blood is giving off such terrifying killing intent, and that killing intent is one of the most terrifying concepts in the world. Its origins are most likely not simple. A major figure said seriously. A major figure nodded and said, This killing intent is definitely not simple, and it's incredibly corrosive. Not only is it pure killing intent, but also contains sharp sword intent and a dark demonic intent. If someone were to consume these few drops of blood, that person would immediately fall into the demonic path and never be able to turn back. A major figure laughed as he said, He didn't disappoint us. Looks like our decision back then was correct. Resisting the pressure from some higher beings was worth it. However, wait. A major figure who had been in deep thought suddenly said, I seem to have seen this killing intent somewhere before. That's right, it was recorded in the ancient records. This killing intent is called killing sword intent, and it can cause people to go into sword obsession. In ancient times, there was a catastrophe, and only a few celestials were able to suppress it. What? The others looked incredibly shocked. They had never thought that this killing intent would have such a great background, and it could even cause true immortals to descend. Chapter 1054. What? Such intense killing intent has weakened? A major figure could not help but ask in shock. The person who had been speaking nodded and said, It said that a few celestials destroyed the killing sword world and used terrifying abilities to get rid of this terrifying domain. The killing intent is naturally not as strong as before. However, what I'm curious about is that this killing intent should not have appeared in this world. So why has it appeared now? And why is it on this person? Hearing this, everyone felt quite confused, but they could not think of a reason. There was another large faction that was constantly paying attention to Zhao Fu, and it was naturally the Heaven's Secrets Pavilion. They were incredibly curious about this person with 3 Emperor Star Fate Stars. Many people have been trying to divine the path of Zhao Fu's fate, but the 3 Emperor Stars did not give them a chance at all. They disrupted Heaven's secrets and prevented all prying into it, so everyone could only observe where Zhao Fu's fate went. On that day, everyone was within Heaven's secrets, observing the trajectory of the 3 Emperor Stars from a distance. However, the 3 Emperor Stars were suddenly covered by a blood-red light, and even though they were extremely far away, they could sense the icy killing intent. They immediately reported this to their superiors, and countless people came to take a look. Following this, the Heaven's Secrets Pavilion's Fate Sovereign, the young woman in white, personally came to the Heaven's Secrets Pavilion, taking this matter quite seriously. The young woman in white's consciousness entered the Heaven's Secrets instrument and tried to divine the reason, and everyone else silently waited by the side. A while later, blood leaked out of the young woman's lips, and she looked quite shocked as she muttered to herself, I never thought that he would be connected to this matter. Before, he had awakened a few Emperor Stars and had the potential to become a son of Heaven's fate. Now, he has the qualifications to become a son of Heaven's fate. Fate Sovereign, are you all right? Seeing that the young woman in white was injured, everyone came over and asked in concern. The young woman in white came back to her senses and shook her head before saying seriously, In the future, don't try to divine his fate. Right now, his fate is covered by a layer of killing intent, so be careful not to lose your lives. Also, this matter might be related to a celestial, so don't continue investigating it. Hearing this, everyone felt incredibly shocked, and their expressions became incredibly serious. They had never thought that this matter would be related to a celestial. If anything was related to a celestial, it would shake the entire world. Fate sovereign, what should we do now? Should we continue to observe the direction of his fate? Someone asked respectfully. The woman in white thought for a moment before nodding and saying, "We can continue to observe him. Now that he has the qualifications to become a son of heaven's fate, he will definitely come to the center of the heaven domain in the future. Everyone will know his name, and he might change the heaven-awakened world." Yes, everyone in the surroundings obeyed and understood how important this matter was. Children of heaven's fate were blessed by the entire heaven-awakened world's fate, and all of them were geniuses who could shake the world. However, this person only had the qualifications and was not a child of heaven's will. However, this was enough to make them feel shocked because they knew how terrifying a child of heaven's will was. As such, that person was worth them continuing to observe. Back in the killing sword world, Zhao Fu held the clear sable sword, and a heaven-reaching blood-red pillar stood within the primal chaos. A massive blood-red energy barrier expanded out, covering the 100 kilometers of primal chaos. Clang! The clear sable sword once again gave off a massive sword hum, and a wave of source energy spread out from the clear sable sword. With Zhao Fu at the center, the blue sky and grass spread out, reaching the boundary of the blood-red barrier, forming a world that was 100 kilometers wide. The blood-red light around Zhao Fu's body gradually dissipated, and Zhao Fu's consciousness once again took control of his body. Looking at the blue sky and white clouds around him, he felt quite shocked. The current Killing Sword world was completely different to the Killing Sword world from before. The world that had been filled with blood and slaughter was now incredibly dilapidated and lifeless. Right now, the Killing Sword world was filled with life, but that did not mean that it was not dangerous. Every stone, every blade of grass, and every drop of water contained killing intent, but they did not reveal it. Instead, they hid it within themselves, making it so that ordinary people would not be able to sense it. Zhao Fu held the clear sable sword and looked at the new Killing Sword world with great interest. On the surface, it looked just like a normal world, and there was nothing different about it. Apart from this, Zhao Fu also found a sword graveyard. There were tens of thousands of swords stabbed into the grass, giving off powerful sword auras. Zhao Fu looked at these swords and found that they were the swords that the Golden Dragon had used to seal the 4 people who had gone into sword obsession. Back when the Killing Sword world had collapsed, everything had been sucked into the clear sable sword. Now, the 4 people who had gone into sword obsession had turned into 4 powerful sword souls within the clear sable sword. After going through the clear sable sword's power, the swords that had sealed them had fused with the Killing Sword world, becoming a part of it. Zhao Fu did not pay too much attention to these swords, as he had heard from the Golden Dragon that if these swords were left here in the future, they would give birth to powerful sword souls. The space that had been as big as a region was now only 100 kilometers wide. The clear sable sword gathered all of its power to reforge the Killing Sword world, and even though it was smaller, it was more useful and powerful. However, should the reforged world continue to be called the Killing Sword world or the Emperor Killing Sword world? Zhao Fu chose to call it the Emperor Killing Sword world because the clear sable sword was the core of this brand new world. As for how to develop the Emperor Killing Sword world, Zhao Fu had asked the Golden Dragon in detail, and he had said that he could expand the Emperor Killing Sword world through slaughter. The current Emperor Killing Sword world could grow through slaughter. However, there were restrictions. Only people from the Emperor Killing Sword world could provide slaughtering power for the Emperor Killing Sword world. The Golden Dragon's method was to use the clear sable sword to create a slaughtering lake and have swordsmen enter it to become people from the Emperor Killing Sword world. However, even though it looked like the Emperor Killing Sword world had become gentle and did not seem dangerous at all, that was not actually the case. Even though the terrifying killing intent had been weakened and contained a trace of Emperor's Way power, it was still an uncontrollable power. Those who became people from the Emperor Killing Sword world would become killing machines, and they would still go into sword obsession. No one would be able to control them, and they would still be incredibly powerful. Now, Zhao Fu held the clear sable sword the core of the Emperor Killing Sword world, and only then could he control the power of the killing intent. At the same time, because the clear sable sword had Emperor's Way power, the new Emperor Killing Sword world also had Emperor's Way power. This would allow Zhao Fu to control those who had gone into sword obsession. In other words, the Emperor Killing Sword world could be used by Zhao Fu, which was something that Zhao Fu was incredibly happy about. Chapter 1055. Now, the abnormal signs outside had disappeared, but the boundary region had fallen into chaos. Almost all of the ancient STEM domains experts had descended here, and even some experts from the surrounding domains had come. The killing intent that the Killing Sword world had exploded out with caused their souls to tremble. Now that such a big thing had happened, they had to come, or else they would not even know that a great calamity had descended. The various experts turned the boundary world upside down. The people in the boundary world had been affected by the abnormal signs and felt incredibly terrified. Now that so many experts had done this, they felt even more terrified, and some people even started to run to other worlds. The world was about to be destroyed, and a catastrophe was about to descend. Evil creatures descended, and all sorts of rumors spread, causing people to feel incredibly panicked and unable to live in peace. They did not know why such terrifying abnormal signs had appeared or what had caused them. They could only hope that none of this had happened, because that killing intent made it so that they did not dare to stay here. They could only pray that nothing had happened. The experts could not find a reason, but they did not give up. They searched for a few more days before reluctantly leaving. At the same time, they did not give up and offered rewards. Anyone who could provide information about the reason for the abnormal signs would be rewarded with countless treasures and cities, and they would be able to become disciples of major figures. This made countless people feel quite tempted. After all, these experts had come from within the ancient STEM domain and had existed for much longer than them. Their abilities and resources were not things that boundary worlds could compare to. The rewards given by the various experts meant that it was a great opportunity. So many people took the risk to find the reason for the abnormal signs. After Zhao Fu came out of the Emperor Killing Sword world, the clear sable sword had been returned to the sword mark, and Zhao Fu's appearance had returned to normal. Now that the clear sable sword had become the core of the Emperor Killing Sword world, its grade could no longer be estimated. It only displayed the word source. As long as he held the clear sable sword, Zhao Fu would enter sword obsession, causing his power to greatly increase and allowing him to control that killing intent. Moreover, Zhao Fu controlled the Emperor Killing Sword world's core, so Zhao Fu could enter the Emperor Killing Sword world at any time. However, the prerequisite was that there were no disturbances. In actuality, the clear sable sword could be renamed to Emperor Killing Sword. This name was more suitable for the clear sable sword. At the same time, Zhao Fu had never thought that such a terrifying abnormal sign would appear. It had spread to hundreds of worlds, and Zhao Fu had thought that there would not be any abnormal signs because they were in different worlds. However, if Zhao Fu knew that even the godly spirit world and underworld had been affected, he would be even more shocked. He was the reason why countless people were searching for him. With so many experts searching for him, Zhao Fu naturally couldn't be too high profile. Otherwise, the consequences would be very serious. What surprised Zhao Fu even more was the change in the elf world. Under the influence of that terrifying killing intent, blood-haired elves with blood-red eyes and killing intent appeared. These elves had successfully accepted the baptism of killing intent and mastered it. The killing intent had also changed their elven bloodline. Now, they could be regarded as a mutated race. This was quite common in the Heaven Awakened world. Under unimaginable power, creatures could easily mutate. These mutated elves' personalities greatly changed as well. They all became cruel and bloodthirsty, and they all liked to use swords. At the same time, their power greatly increased. They called themselves Killing Sword Elves and worshipped the Killing Sword intent. They were willing to become the Killing Sword Master's servants, and they could faintly sense the Killing Sword Master's existence through the killing intent. They were certain that he was a peerless expert, and that no one could rival him. Zhao Fu was the killing sword master, and there were at least 10 million people who had mutated into killing sword elves. With so many servants, Zhao Fu was naturally quite happy. Perhaps he would be able to perfectly accomplish his goal in the elf world. However, Zhao Fu found that they were just saying that. Zhao Fu did not have the power to control them. After all, their mutations did not come through Zhao Fu but through the abnormal signs. However, Zhao Fu controlled the source of the killing sword intent, so even though he could not control them, he could influence them. There was also something else that was quite good, which was that Zhao Fu's bloodline was now a lower stage 18 imperial bloodline, and his bloodline had once again become stronger. At this level, it was incredibly difficult to raise one's bloodline by even a little bit. Zhao Fu's goal in coming to the elf world was to find chess pieces, and he had never thought that such a thing would happen. Back then, if it wasn't for the clear sable sword's reaction, Zhao Fu would not have gone to that ancient tomb. This time, Zhao Fu's target was a small kingdom. A small faction would not attract as much attention, and this kingdom's king was quite old. A few princes were secretly trying to seize power, and Zhao Fu could take advantage of this. This kingdom was called the Full Moon Kingdom, and it was quite close to the grassy world. Zhao Fu had specially chosen this place because it was close and could provide powerful reinforcements. Zhao Fu could use this place as a spear to pierce through the elf world. Before, Zhao Fu had planned to go to this small kingdom, but things developed in a way that exceeded what Zhao Fu had expected. This was because the killing sword elves were all incredibly bloodthirsty and did not obey any restrictions. They were not loyal to anyone, and they were all rebels. They killed people in various kingdoms, causing many commoners to panic. They were afraid that they would be killed by the killing sword elves if they were not careful. The commoners started to reject the killing sword elves, but the killing sword elves continued to commit crimes without restraint, causing the kingdoms to feel quite uneasy. As such, those in power could not help but give the order to kill the killing sword elves who were under their control. There were already a few kingdoms in the elf world that had done this, and it was becoming more and more common. It was possible that all of the kingdoms in the elf world would give the order to kill these elves who had just mutated. Chase them. The king has given the order to get rid of all of the killing sword elves. They are now criminals of the kingdom. An elf general riding on a white horse led an army of 100,000 soldiers as they chased after a few thousand killing sword elves. Because there were many of them and they had all kinds of soldiers, if the killing sword elves stayed behind, they would definitely die. Even though the killing sword elves were incredibly bloodthirsty, that did not mean they were stupid. As such, they could only desperately run away. In the end, the elf general used his cavalry to stop the killing sword elves, and the soldiers behind him spread out, planning to surround and kill all of the killing sword elves. Me, what should we do now? We've been surrounded. A ferocious-looking killing sword elf asked a handsome killing sword elf. Chapter 1056. Kill, 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 kill. The killing sword spirits were incredibly ferocious, and facing the army surrounding them, they did not show any fear at all. Instead, they looked incredibly excited as they raised their blood-red swords and roared. The elf general felt quite surprised. These killing sword spirits did not run or choose a direction to break out from, and they instead wanted to attack them. There were only 7,000 or so of these killing sword spirits, while they had 100,000 soldiers and cavalry and shield bearers. Facing these killing sword spirits, the elf general looked quite disdainful. Continue to surround these killing sword spirits. Don't let a single one escape. Kill them all, the elf general ordered, and a large number of soldiers flooded towards the killing sword spirits, preparing to surround them. That way, not a single one of them would be able to escape, and they would all be killed. However, the killing sword spirits did not show any fear and activated the killing sword blood's power within their bodies, causing them to give off traces of blood-red chi. The blood-red swords in their hands gave off sharp sword lights as they ferociously rushed at the soldiers. Clang, clang, clang. The sounds of weapons clashing could be heard as the two sides started to fight. What was unexpected was that these killing sword spirits were incredibly powerful, and their attacks were incredibly ferocious. A killing sword spirit leapt up and disregarded everything else as it rushed into the group of soldiers. Its blood-red sword light slashed out, killing 5 or 6 soldiers, and its body was stabbed by countless weapons before it died. A killing sword spirit madly laughed and ignored the spears stabbing into its body. It ferociously stabbed its sword through a soldier's head before rushing towards another person. A killing sword spirit grabbed the incoming saber and slashed out with its blood-red sword, cutting off that soldier's arm. The soldier cried out and retreated, while the killing sword spirit savagely leapt up. A killing sword spirit with a broken arm and a few slashes on its face ferociously rushed into the group of soldiers and started to kill. Seeing this, the elf general could not help but curse, "A bunch of madmen." They naturally could not go on like this because these killing sword spirits were not weak at all and were incredibly berserk. If this went on, even if they destroyed these killing sword spirits, they would suffer great losses. Infantry at the front, retreat. Archers, fire your arrows. Cavalry, charge forward. The elf general gave the order, and the soldiers at the front retreated to avoid being accidentally injured by the archers. However, even though they wanted to retreat, the killing sword elves continued to tie them down and madly attack. Seeing this, the elven general had no choice but to let the archers shoot freely while the cavalry charged forward to find an opportunity to kill. Shio! An arrow shot out like a black shadow and pierced into a killing sword elf's heart, killing it. The cavalrymen charged up on their horses and slashed down with their sabers, killing one of the killing sword fairies. Even though the killing sword spirits were being killed one by one, their auras did not weaken at all, and they continued to ferociously attack. Their bodies were covered with blood, and their expressions were savage, making them look like devils. Seeing more and more people die, the elf general could not help but personally act. A powerful aura exploded out of his body as he charged at the killing sword elves. At that moment, Mia's elf devoured a crystal and exploded out with an aura that was not any weaker than the elf general's, and the two sides started to fight. The killing sword elves continuously died, and the soldiers continuously died as well. Blood sprayed everywhere, and the battlefield was incredibly intense. The killing sword elves madly attacked, and each one of them could take away many people's lives. Only 1,000 or so killing sword elves remained, and the soldiers had lost nearly 20,000 soldiers. Bang! Miyu was sent flying by the elf general's saber and crashed into the ground, opening up a large crater. The elf general stood in the air, and seeing so many soldiers die, he looked furious. He raised his saber and prepared to rush up and kill Miyi, ending the battle as soon as possible. Miyi wildly laughed. He did not have much strength left in his body, but he still gripped his blood-red sword and stood up. He knew that he was going to die, but the fervor of his bloodline caused him to become addicted to killing. Bang! Miyu was once again sent flying, and a gash appeared on his chest, from which blood continuously flowed out. He looked like he was on the verge of death. The elf general coldly harumphed and said, "You bunch of madmen who only know how to kill should be gotten rid of as soon as possible. We definitely won't allow people like you to exist." Mii fell to the ground and did not even have the strength to crawl up. His blood-red eyes glared at the elf general as if he wanted to kill him. The elf general was furious and was about to attack again to kill Mii. Boom! An incredibly terrifying aura descended, causing the surrounding air to freeze. Everyone's bodies seemed to freeze as they looked at the sky in terror. The sky had become blood-red, and a figure stood in the sky. He wore a black cloak and was surrounded by a blood-red flame. He held a black and blood-red sword, and even though it was impossible to see his appearance, the eyes under the cloak gave off a chilling blood-red light, as if he was the most terrifying evil being in the world. His body gave off an almost corporeal killing intent, causing the clouds to disappear and all creatures in the world to tremble in fear. Countless soldiers looked terrified as their bodies continuously trembled, and even their souls seemed to cry out. However, the remaining 1,000 or so killing sword elves were the complete opposite. They could sense the surge of their bloodlines. This was the source of their killing sword intent, and it was the power of the killing sword master. The sword in the cloaked figure's hand was the true killing sword that they worshipped. The elves stabbed their blood-red swords into the ground and knelt, looking at the godlike person in the sky with fervent and devout expressions. The general elf looked terrified, and his body was so stiff that he could not move at all. Everyone present had just experienced that terrifying abnormal sign, and that terrifying killing intent had been carved into their bones. Now they had seen the true body. He was the source of all those abnormal signs. He was the person that all of the experts in the ancient STEM domain were looking for. He was the owner of that terrifying killing intent. How could there be such a terrifying person in the world? Just who was this terrifying person, and where did he come from? Was the elf world going to perish? Shing! A crisp sword chime rang out, and many indistinct sword souls holding blood-red swords appeared, covering the entire sky. The soldiers felt an aura of death, but before they could do anything, the cloaked figure lightly swung his sword. Boom! Chapter 1057. The ground was covered with the corpses of soldiers, and blood flowed everywhere, giving off a pungent stench. The killing sword elves at the center of the corpses knelt on the ground and did not move. They looked pious, and their eyes were filled with passion as they looked at the godlike person in the sky. Indeed, that person had not harmed the killing sword elves. So many sword souls had descended from the sky, and some had passed by them without harming them at all. This made them feel even more excited. The killing sword master had acknowledged their existence. Mi, who had been heavily injured, looked incredibly excited as he struggled to crawl, looking pious and pious as he faced the godlike person in their hearts. Zhao Fu's appearance had undoubtedly given these people true light, saving them from the darkness and allowing them to find a direction to advance. The killing intent did not just corrode their bodies, but also their minds. Now, the killing sword elves were not as savage as before, and they all looked like pious and loyal pets. It seemed that even if Zhao Fu killed them now, they would not have any complaints. After hearing about this and the information from that small kingdom, Zhao Fu had a clear plan. After doing these things, Zhao Fu did not say anything or express anything. His body blurred and disappeared as if he had never appeared. Only then did the killing sword elves come back to their senses and excitedly stand up. Today they had seen the killing sword master, the source of all killing sword intent. This was a supreme glory for the killing sword elves. The killing sword elves who had been talking to me, Yi took out various medicinal pills and fed them to me, Yi, causing his injuries to quickly recover. Following this, the killing sword elves left. Through them, the news of the killing sword master spread throughout the entire elf world and shook the entire ancient STEM domain. What? That terrifying abnormal signs weren't caused by abnormal signs, but by someone. The killing sword master that those people are talking about really exists? Just who is that person? He actually caused such terrifying abnormal signs. That person is too dangerous. Hurry and investigate him, or else the consequences will be terrifying. The ancient STEM domain really has produced a monster. I can't believe that a demon would appear in the ancient STEM domain. This demon is simply too terrifying. If he really is someone from our ancient STEM domain, will he cause a catastrophe? This matter is incredibly important. That berserk killing intent and the abnormal signs of hundreds of worlds are enough to show that this matter will definitely threaten the ancient STEM domain. In fact, this matter might even be related to the 10 higher beings heading to the boundary worlds. Countless people's expressions became serious as they hurried towards the elf world. They understood how serious this matter was, and they did their best to find all information about that monstrous genius. They had to get to the bottom of this, or else they would feel uneasy. That person might really cause a catastrophe. All sorts of experts gathered in the elf world, causing the entire elf world to feel incredibly nervous. They were worried that they would offend people if they were not careful. The people gathered here were all experts from the ancient STEM domain and had massive factions behind them. None of them could be offended. A middle-aged Confucian scholar stood in the sky and asked the others, a black cloak, a black-blooded sword, and a terrifying gaze. What other characteristics do you have? The other white-robed youth shook his head. That's all. Apart from that, there aren't any other special characteristics. However, based on the minute differences, this person isn't an elf. He might have come from another world. Where did this person come from? Is he someone from the ancient STEM domain? Did those higher beings also come for this matter? Why do I feel that something big is about to happen to the ancient STEM domain? A big man asked worriedly with an anxious expression. An elderly man sighed as he said, AI, that terrifying power caused even existences like us to tremble. It's evident just how terrifying it is. Those higher beings most likely really are related to this matter. That person's strength is not low, and it's most likely that he's from the heaven domain. Hearing the words heaven domain, everyone could not help but feel quite startled. After all, that was the center of the heaven-awakened world, and it was not something that their outer domains could compare to. A valiant-looking middle-aged man said seriously, that person has most likely left the elf world, and we won't be able to find him. We can only hope that he really is someone from the heaven domain and doesn't come to the ancient STEM domain in the future. That person is simply too dangerous and might cause the ancient STEM domain to change. Hearing this, everyone nodded, agreeing with this person's words. Now that they could not find anything in the elf world, they could only leave. However, they had left some spies in the elf world. After all, that person had appeared in the elf world once and might be useful in the future. Seeing the countless experts leave, all the elves in the elf world let out a sigh of relief. With so many experts gathered here, they did not even dare to breathe loudly. Even the various kings did not dare to make a sound. After all, it would only take a few minutes for those people to destroy the elf world. The ones who were the happiest about this were naturally the killing sword elves. Firstly, the path of the killing sword that they worshipped caused everyone to feel fear. Secondly, the killing sword master had appeared and acknowledged them. And thirdly, with a terrifying figure like the killing sword master backing them, the various factions in the elf world did not dare to wantonly slaughter them. Before, the elf kingdoms felt that the killing sword elves were too dangerous and caused all sorts of unrest, so they wanted to get rid of them. When that time came, the killing sword elves would face a disaster. However, now that the terrifying killing sword master had appeared and saved a group of killing sword elves, everyone could not help but reconsider. This person was simply too shocking, and even the ancient STEM domains experts felt incredibly wary of him, let alone them. Now, they could only strengthen their management and restrict some of the killing sword elves. They did not dare to give the order to get rid of all of the killing sword elves, in fear of angering that terrifying killing sword master and offending someone they should not offend. Because of this, the countless killing sword elves were able to live, and their faith in the killing sword master became even more fervent. Zhao Fu had become their spiritual leader, and he gathered the scattered killing sword elves into one. This was Zhao Fu's goal. With such powerful battle power and numbers, it would be a pity if he did not use them. Zhao Fu wanted to use their power to help his faction quickly develop. Otherwise, Zhao Fu would not have the time to show himself and take such a great risk. With so many terrifying figures gathered in the elf world, Zhao Fu felt quite startled and even regretted making this plan. Now that Zhao Fu had completed the first step of his plan, Zhao Fu started to carry out the second step, which was to head to the Full Moon Kingdom. Before, Zhao Fu had planned to make the youngest prince a puppet king, as it would be easier to control. However, now, Zhao Fu had a new target, as one of the princes had also become a killing sword elf. Chapter 1058. Within the building, a cold and arrogant elf with blood-red hair and eyes said towards the barrier, "Who are you? Why do you want to see this prince? Do you really have the power to make this prince the king of the Full Moon Kingdom? Of course, this is a small matter, but you'll have to pay an equivalent price." A cold voice sounded out from within the barrier. Hearing this, The elf did not quite believe it. Becoming the king of a kingdom was not a small matter, and this person made it sound so easy, as if it was a small matter. Haha, this prince doesn't believe your words. You're too arrogant. The elf prince said as he coldly laughed. He would not easily trust this person who had appeared out of nowhere, or else he would not even know how he died. However, right after he spoke, a killing intent that caused his blood to boil was emitted from the barrier. Sensing this terrifying killing intent, the elf prince was not afraid at all. Instead, his expression became excited as he looked at the barrier. A black-cloaked figure slowly walked out, and the elf prince looked at the person in front of him in disbelief. He had never thought that the killing sword master that the killing sword elves worshipped would come find him. However, with this terrifying killing sword master's help, becoming the king of the Full Moon Kingdom would not be a problem at all. The elf prince immediately smiled and said, "Please help this prince become the king of the Full Moon Kingdom, and this prince will definitely worship you." The elf prince's words were quite courteous, but he did not bow or kneel. Instead, he spoke in a tone that was slightly lower than Zhao Fu's and not like a servant's. It seemed that the royal bloodline within his body was somewhat useful and had gotten rid of some of the effects of the killing intent. Before, Zhao Fu had said that Zhao Fu did not have the power to control them, and their actions were completely up to them. Moreover, no matter what the elf prince did, Zhao Fu had already made his decision. Zhao Fu lightly laughed as he said, "That's naturally not a problem, but I also said that you'll have to pay an equivalent price." The elf prince said confidently, "No problem. As long as this prince becomes the king of the Full Moon Kingdom, this prince can give you anything you want. Is that so?" Zhao Fu gave a cold smile as he looked at the elf prince and walked towards him. The elf prince sensed that something was wrong and took a few steps back, a look of panic on his face as he asked, "What are you doing?" "I am the prince of the Full Moon Kingdom. There are so many experts looking for you outside. If you dare to do anything, aren't you afraid that your identity will be exposed?" Zhao Fu did not say anything. His emperor's domain had already covered the room, making it so that no one outside could sense anything. A powerful power spread out from Zhao Fu's body, and it was as if there was a large, formless hand grabbing onto the elf prince. The elf prince looked terrified and desperately struggled, but he was unable to break free at all. With his strength, how could he resist Zhao Fu? Zhao Fu drew the emperor killing sword and stabbed it into the elf prince's chest, causing massive killing intent to flow into the elf prince's body. "Ah!" The elf prince howled as countless traces of blood-red light flowed out of his body. His body started to go through changes as Zhao Fu was using his killing intent to corrode his body and soul. The elf prince's hands gradually became sharp claws and fangs grew out of his mouth. His blood-red eyes became even redder and gave off a chilling blood-red light. His blood-red hair madly grew until it reached his hips, and his appearance went through many changes. Seeing this, Zhao Fu pulled out the emperor killing sword and the wound quickly healed, forming a blood-red sword mark on his chest. The elf prince respectfully knelt on the ground and called out, "Master!" Zhao Fu gave a pleased smile. From the beginning, Zhao Fu had planned to turn the elf prince into this. After all, he wanted to take over his kingdom and make it Qin's possession. No one would agree to this. As such, Zhao Fu needed to completely control him. Only then would he be able to make him listen to him and work for him without ever betraying him. Right now, the elf prince could only be said to be half in sword obsession. Zhao Fu did not have him completely enter sword obsession, as that would cause him to lose all reason and become a monster that only knew how to kill. Even though Zhao Fu could control him, he could not become a puppet king. Following this, Zhao Fu had the elf prince return and waited for Zhao Fu's next step. Zhao Fu's next step was naturally to seize the throne. However, many people disliked the killing sword elves, and if he became the king, there would be many obstacles. There were also a few princes who were candidates, making it even more impossible for the elf prince to become the king. What Zhao Fu needed to do now was to get rid of all obstacles. The first thing he needed to do was assassinate the elderly king. Zhao Fu was waiting for a suitable opportunity, because he could not do it too obviously. It would not be good to do it in the royal city, as not only would it attract too much attention, but it was also possible that he would not succeed. After all, the royal city was where all of the kingdom's fate gathered, and the king himself had a large amount of fate. Moreover, the king's fate dragon would fuse with the kingdom's fate, and if he faced danger, it would automatically protect him. As such, Zhao Fu had to wait for a good opportunity, which was to leave the royal city. The king could not stay within the royal city forever. Half a month later, Zhao Fu finally had an opportunity. The king and his people had planned to patrol their territory one last time before choosing a legatee to inherit the Full Moon Kingdom's throne. After patrolling the 6th region, Zhao Fu could not help but act. He first set down an advanced isolation barrier to delay the reinforcements before directly attacking. Boom! Zhao Fu held the Death Disaster Sword and slashed out with all of his strength, sending out a massive wave of deathly aura towards the army that was resting. The army did not panic too much. They were the Full Moon Kingdom's elites, and they exploded out with their auras, wanting to defend against the incoming deathly aura. However, the deathly aura was unexpectedly ferocious, and it inundated the elites and corroded their life force. The expressions of the experts that the king had brought fell, and they also sent out shockwaves, wanting to blow away the massive wave of deathly aura. At that moment, Zhao Fu suddenly attacked the elderly king. Because the king was old, his reactions were quite slow, and Zhao Fu sealed him up with chains. He could not even use his nation armament. The king had an ancient face, and his eyes were hazy as he looked at Zhao Fu and said, "Who sent you?" Zhao Fu did not waste any words with him. Time was of the essence, so he did not reply and directly killed him before taking the king's seal and quickly leaving. Chapter 1059. At the same time, undercurrents were moving in the Full Moon Kingdom. The factions supported by the princes were all trying to take the throne and become the king of the Full Moon Kingdom. However, the most important thing had disappeared with the death of the previous king, and that was the king's seal. Because the king's seal had been lost, the Full Moon Kingdom's nation protecting formation had automatically activated, and the city hall's defensive barrier had also been activated. The king's seal was the most important item of a kingdom, and if it was lost, it would be a massive problem. Of course, it was not like the City Lord's seal, where whoever had the City Lord seal would be the City Lord. After all, this was the seal of the kingdom, and if one wanted to use it, one had to conquer a royal city or have the royal bloodline of the kingdom. Now that the royal seal had been lost, it would be impossible to find it again. As such, the kingdom's ministers decided to reduce the level 2 barony city to level 1 and use that to create a new royal seal. The person who created the new royal seal naturally had to be a new king. But who will be the new king? Undercurrents were surging in the Full Moon Kingdom, and various factions were gathering their forces at the royal city. The various ministers were also choosing their rulers, and the commoners all felt a trace of danger, making them feel quite uneasy. However, just a few days later, the new king ascended the throne. Everything was out of everyone's expectations, and the king's seal did not condense again. The new king was not the first prince with the greatest faction, nor was it the 4th prince with the greatest potential. Instead, it was the 8th prince who had become a killing sword elf and was the least likely to become the new king. Over the next few days, a few major events shook the Full Moon Kingdom. Not only had the old king been assassinated, but a few other princes had also been assassinated. At that moment, the 8th prince had taken the king's seal and forcefully ascended to the throne. Countless people couldn't help but think that the previous king's death, as well as the prince's deaths, were definitely related to the 8th prince. In order to seize the throne, the 8th prince had been unscrupulous, killing his own father and brothers. The 8th prince's personality wasn't very good to begin with, and he was vicious and merciless. He wasn't popular, so no one was surprised that he would do such a disgraceful thing. However, if such a person became the king of the Full Moon Kingdom, the commoners would suffer. However, The common people didn't expect that the eighth prince would change his previous style as soon as he ascended to the throne. He issued several policies that benefited the common people and stabilized the common people's hearts. However, at that moment, there were also a few rebellions. They had originally been supporters of the other princes, and they did not accept the fact that the eighth prince had become the new king. However, the eighth prince had already ascended to the throne and obtained the king's seal, so he directly mobilized troops to suppress them. After the initial instability, the situation in the full moon kingdom gradually stabilized. The eighth prince also became the new king and gradually won the hearts of the people. The unrest also calmed down. Seeing that the killing sword fairies had become kings, the surrounding people felt quite surprised. Before, they had planned to completely wipe out the killing sword fairies, but now there were killing sword fairies who had become kings. Following this, they heard a shocking piece of news. The Full Moon Kingdom's eighth prince announced to the world that the Full Moon Kingdom would be renamed to the Killing Sword Kingdom, and all killing sword elves in the elf world could go to the Killing Sword Kingdom. Here, their identities would be acknowledged, and their safety would be guaranteed. These words sent the entire elf world into an uproar. This was to gather all of the killing sword elves and establish a killing sword kingdom. Because of the terrifying killing sword master, all of the kingdoms did not want to have anything to do with the killing sword fairies. Keeping them around was just a bunch of trouble, and yet the Full Moon Kingdom was willing to accept them. Was he not afraid of the killing sword fairies causing trouble? This was most likely related to the killing sword master, and all of the experts in the ancient STEM domain were paying attention to this matter. If it was not dealt with well, let alone a small barony kingdom, even the elf world would be doomed. However, hearing that the new king of the Full Moon Kingdom was also a killing sword elf, everyone understood a bit more. The killing sword fairies were naturally overjoyed about this. They were scattered throughout the various kingdoms and received all sorts of strange gazes. They were like a plate of loose sand, and the killing sword master's appearance gave them a spiritual leader. However, the killing sword kingdom's appearance connected them together and formed a force. Moreover, the other party was also a killing sword elf and had the killing sword master's name, which naturally attracted countless killing sword fairies. In just a few days, the Killing Sword Kingdom had 20 million killing sword fairies, giving the Killing Sword Kingdom a large group of powerful people. Moreover, the Killing Sword Kingdom had become the best place for killing sword fairies, so there were still many killing sword fairies hurrying over. As for the killing sword fairies that had gathered, Zhao Fu took good care of them in order to prevent them from harming the kingdom. After taking care of everything and stabilizing the situation, Zhao Fu spent another month. However, he had already achieved his goal in coming to the elf world, which was to set up a powerful chess piece here. Now, he needed the world to properly develop and get rid of any obstacles so that Qin could shine in front of the world. Apart from this, Zhao Fu's greatest gain this time was the Emperor Killing Sword World. After delaying it for a month, it was time to take care of it. If the Emperor Killing Sword World could be developed, it would be incredibly important to Qin. The Killing Sword Lake was quite simple. One only needed to use the Emperor Killing Sword to create one. However, it was not easy to find people who could go into sword obsession. Even though any living creature that could hold a sword could go into sword obsession, it was only sword obsession. In order to unleash the power of the killing sword intent, one had to be a sword cultivator. Only sword cultivators were suitable to become someone from the Emperor Killing Sword World. The more talented a sword cultivator was, the more they would be able to unleash the power of sword obsession, and the more potential they would have. In order to achieve a higher level of sword obsession, Zhao Fu had to find a sword cultivator with exceptional talent. On the surface, the killing sword intent displayed killing intent, and its way of doing things was similar to demonic intent. However, sword intent was its foundation. Whether it was killing intent or demonic intent, they both used the sword as their foundation. Sword intent itself was a rather terrifying state in the world, which was why the killing sword intent was so terrifying. Moreover, the Emperor Killing Sword world had only just been recreated and was only 100 kilometers wide. The number of people that could be converted was limited, only 100. Now that Qin had billions of soldiers, 100 people was simply too few. As such, Zhao Fu placed great importance on potential. After returning to Qin, Zhao Fu thought about this matter. Gunia was the #1 swordsman in Qin and had extraordinary talent for cultivating the sword. However, sword obsession could never be dispelled, and once one went into sword obsession, one would forever be a demon. There was no turning back, and one's consciousness would sink into an eternal cycle of killing. Zhao Fu could not bear for Qin's people to end up like this, so he naturally could not target Qin's people. As such, he could only find people other than Qin. To them, Qin was not a burden at all. Chapter 1060. The world was so big and there were so many people. Moreover, the sword Dao was a relatively common cultivation path. It was naturally not a problem to find 100 talented swordsmen. Human world, sword sect, Zhang Xiaohua. He started training with the sword at 5 years old and reached Grandmaster level at 20 years old. His sword techniques were crude, but they contained immense destructive power. Dark Demon World, Breaking Demon Sect, Luan Mingsan. He had an innate sword body and had learned all sorts of sword techniques since he was young. He had extremely deep comprehension of the way of the sword and was one of the most talented swordsmen in the Western continent. Elf World, Meath Kingdom, Kejni. He was a royal swordsman and had a deep understanding of the elf sword technique. His sword techniques gave off a noble and elegant aura. Zhao Fu smiled as he looked at the information he had gathered on the sword cultivators and gave the order to capture them. These sword cultivators were all quite powerful, so Zhao Fu naturally had to make some preparations. Zhao Fu first sent 30 city lords to form a team and prepared all sorts of items that countered sword cultivators to suppress them from afar. Zhao Fu understood that these people were quite dangerous, and if they were not careful, they could suffer heavy casualties. Zhao Fu gave the person in charge of this operation to Gunia, and he gave him an official seal equivalent to a Marquette city's strength to prevent anything unexpected from happening. If they could not defeat them, they could crush them with brute force. Clang, 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 on a piece of yellow soil, an ordinary-looking young man swung a large sword, sending out waves of sword wind that swept up sand. He was incredibly powerful, and no one dared to get close. Suddenly, Zhang Xiaohua stopped and looked up at the sky with a serious expression. Black-cloaked people appeared in the sky. "Who are you?" Zhang Xiaohua's expression was cold as he pointed his sword at the mysterious people in the sky, because he could sense the ill intent from them. Boom! The dozens of people in the sky exploded out with their City Lord Seal's power, activating the pendants in front of their chests. The pendants gave off intense black lights. Zhang Xiaohua immediately felt that something was off. He had never thought that these dozens of people would all be city lords. He would only be able to deal with 20 of them at most, and this number far exceeded what he could accept. Moreover, the other side seemed to have come prepared. Zhang Xiaohua's first thought was to run, but it was too late. Just as Zhang Xiaohua moved, the mysterious people in the sky pointed at him. A black magic formation appeared around Zhang Xiaohua, and an incredibly powerful energy locked him down. No matter how much Zhang Xiaohua struggled, he was unable to break free. Soon, he was taken away by the mysterious people. Within a beautiful castle, a golden-haired, middle-aged elf chuckled as he taught a few elf children how to practice swordsmanship. The children clumsily practiced, causing the middle-aged elf to laugh. But in the next moment, Kejni's expression changed, and he hurriedly said to the elven children, "Go back to your room." The children didn't know what was going on. Looking at Kejni's expression, they obediently returned to the room. A group of people wearing black cloaks appeared around Kejni and looked at him with unfriendly eyes. Kejni's expression was solemn. With an elegant movement, he pulled out the elven sword tied to his waist. The mysterious people did not say anything and directly chose to attack. Chains with great power flew out. With a few clanging sounds, Kejni was outnumbered and was taken away. The elven children once again ran out, but they could no longer see their Uncle Kejni. Soon, others hurried over, and only then did they find out. Pooh! Luan Ming's sand pierced through a person's heart with his sword and disdainfully harumphed. There was a pile of corpses on the ground, and it seemed that a battle had just occurred. Luan Mingsan had taken a fancy to a treasure, but these people were unwilling to give it to him. As such, he could only take it by force. These trash still wanted to resist him, so Luan Mingsan did not hold back at all and killed all of them, including a few elderly people and children. After taking the treasure, Luan Mingsan wiped off the blood on his sword and prepared to leave. However, a black-cloaked figure holding a sharp sword blocked his path. Luan Mingsan's expression became quite serious because he could sense that this person's aura was incredibly powerful and incredibly sharp. He was also a sword cultivator. The two sides did not say anything and directly drew their swords to fight. In the end, Gunia carried the heavily injured and unconscious Luan Mingsan and walked back. The sudden disappearance of sword geniuses drew the attention of many people, and they felt quite confused. Why had these sword geniuses been captured, and what was their goal? They were quite curious, so they went to investigate but did not find any information about any factions. This caused a wave of panic in the sword cultivation world, as these sword geniuses were people they looked up to and admired. Now that they had been captured, would the same thing happen to others? However, because not many people had disappeared, there was not much panic and things gradually calmed down. In the Emperor-killing sword world, Zhao Fu found a flat area and sent his power into the Emperor-killing sword, causing it to give off an intense blood-red light, and the killing intent it gave off became even more intense. Shing! A sword hum sounded out as Zhao Fu stabbed the sword into the ground, causing a blood-red light to rush into the sky. Following this, the ground started to crumble, and the killing intent madly gathered within the crater, seeming to condense into water. As the ground continuously crumbled, more and more water gathered. Soon, all abnormal signs disappeared, and a lake appeared on the green grass. The lake was circular and 1,000 meters wide. The water was clear, and some stones could be seen at the bottom. The surface of the lake was as calm as a mirror, reflecting the blue sky and white clouds, creating a beautiful scene. This was the Lake of Slaughter, and the water within it was condensed from killing intent. If an ordinary person came into contact with it, their body would explode into a bloody mist, and it was quite dangerous. Following this, 100 people were brought in front of Zhao Fu. These were the sword geniuses that Qin had captured. Others did not know who Zhao Fu was, but some people in the human world did. Emperor Qin, you tyrant! Why did you bring us here? A young man furiously cursed. Zhao Fu did not mind and lightly laughed as he replied, "Aren't you sword cultivators? We will now allow you to enter the path of sword cultivators. You're the killing sword master?" Sensing the killing sword intent that was everywhere in the Emperor killing sword world, some people guessed at Zhao Fu's identity and cried out in terror. Hearing this, the expressions of the people outside the legacy land fell, while the people within the legacy land looked quite confused, not knowing what was going on. They did not know that Zhao Fu's name had long since shaken the ancient stem domain, and even people in the heaven domain knew about him. Zhao Fu did not directly reply. Now that these 100 people's power had been sealed, Zhao Fu said, "If you have any last words, speak quickly. Qin will do his best to satisfy them, or we will act." Chapter 1061. Zhao Fu looked at the 100 people in the lake. Their eyes were all tightly closed, and they had fallen into a deep sleep. Whether it was their bodies or souls, they were all being corroded by the terrifying killing intent. Now he just had to wait. At that moment, Zhao Fu had prepared millions of different swords, and the lowest grade of these swords was gold grade. With Qin's wealth that spanned across a few worlds, this was not a problem at all. Zhao Fu had prepared so many swords, and they were stabbed into the ground next to the lake. Together with the grass, the lake, and the blue sky, they formed an incredibly majestic scene. These swords were all for those who had gone into sword obsession. Of course, Those who went into sword obsession needed swords, and the swords themselves would be corroded by the powerful killing intent. They would become swords of slaughter and fuse with those who went into sword obsession. 9 days later, the people in the lake slowly opened their eyes. Their appearances had greatly changed. Their hair had become blood red, and their eyes had become blood red. However, their pupils were sword-shaped, and they had 2 fangs in their mouths. Their hands had become sharp claws, and blood-red sword marks had appeared on the backs of their hands. They no longer breathed, and their hearts no longer beat. Their eyes were cold, and they gave off pure killing intent. Their bodies floated up from the bottom of the lake, and they grabbed at the air. The 100 swords stabbed into the ground next to the lake continuously trembled and gave off sword hums before flying into their hands. The sword marks on the backs of their hands gave off blood-red light, and countless thin blood-red tentacles grew out of their hands, wrapping around the swords in their hands. The blood-red tentacles then slowly fused into the swords, and the swords all became blood-red swords as if they had a life of their own. Swish, 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 these people leapt out of the lake, and massive waves of blood-red chi rose up from their bodies. The water that had been condensed from killing intent also disappeared. Zhao Fu looked at the 100 people in front of him with satisfaction. Their auras were extremely powerful, and even without City Lord seals, their auras could compare to a minor City Lord's. Now, as they stood in front of Zhao Fu, they no longer had any thoughts, only killing. No matter what they had been like before, they could only obey Zhao Fu. No matter what he did, they would obey him. Zhao Fu took 100 people and descended on an orc city. This was a small orc city in the wilderness, and Qin hadn't cleared this place yet. Zhao Fu just wanted to see the true power of sword obsession. Kill! Zhao Fu waved his hand and gave the order to kill. The 100 cultivators behind him transformed into streaks of blood-red light and shot into the small city. Then they began a frenzied massacre. In front of them, the orcs were unable to resist at all, and with a swing of their swords, they killed a large number of them. The countless orcs could only run in terror, and the city lord had only appeared for a few minutes before being easily killed. 10 or so minutes later, everything calmed down. There was blood everywhere in the orc city, and there were corpses lying on the ground. There were hundreds of thousands of them, and only a small number of orcs had escaped. The people in sword obsession stood next to the corpses, their swords giving off a faint blood-red light. The countless corpses' blood was absorbed by a formless energy and entered their blood-red swords, causing the people in sword obsession to gradually become stronger. Perhaps because these people were too weak, Zhao Fu only saw killing and did not see anything special. The people in sword obsession were not injured at all, so he naturally did not know their true power. Zhao Fu left the orc city in disappointment. After all, people in sword obsession grew through killing, and the emperor killing sword world also needed killing to grow. As such, Zhao Fu could not keep these people by his side, and Zhao Fu sent them to the front lines. There, the killing would never stop. After returning to Qin City, Zhao Fu did not take care of administrative matters and instead sent people to gather information about the ancient STEM domain. Zhao Fu had never thought that this matter would cause such terrifying ripples and draw countless experts from the ancient STEM domain over. Facing them, Zhao Fu naturally felt quite wary because he could not defeat them at all. As such, he had to be careful, and Zhao Fu knew who was looking for him. Back then, because of various matters, he had temporarily put them aside, and only now did he have time to deal with them. He had to treat this matter cautiously. Right now, Zhao Fu was wearing a mysterious cloak, making them all feel quite fearful. However, if this cloak was torn apart, they would not hold back at all. Before, Zhao Fu could not see that far, and he could only see the surrounding dozens of worlds. Qin City was still a newbie, so he naturally did not have to look too far. However, with Qin City's strength across a few worlds, there were not many people who could call him a newbie. It could be said that almost no one in the ancient STEM domain would be able to expand so quickly, especially when a novice barrier had not disappeared yet. Great Qin could still use it to defend against the dangers outside. This was the most shameless novice. Now that he had caused such a big thing, Zhao Fu had to gain some understanding of the ancient stem domain and make preparations, or else he would not even know how he died. Following this, Zhao Fu called over Medicine Stone, the little fatty that Zhao Fu had brought back from the outside world. He came from the Medicine King world, which was the inner domain of the ancient stem domain, so he most likely had some understanding of the inner domains. Heavens, big bro, did you cause such a big commotion outside? Even the ancient stem domains experts have come? Big bro, you're simply too terrifying. Medicine Stone had put on some weight and looked at Zhao Fu in shock. In front of others, he would call Zhao Fu Your Majesty, but in private, he would shamelessly call Zhao Fu Big Bro. At first, he did not know why Zhao Fu had called him over, but after Zhao Fu told him what had happened outside, Medicine Stone was so shocked that he did not know what to say. He felt that following this big bro was simply too awesome, and it far surpassed anything he had expected. Back in the Elf Kingdom, he had sensed that Zhao Fu's identity was not simple at all, so he had shamelessly pestered Zhao Fu. Later, he was shocked to find that Zhao Fu was just someone from the newbie world. However, Qin City's strength had greatly shocked him. There were very few people who had such strength in the newbie world. Afterwards, Qin City's rapid development had made Medicine Stone incredibly happy, and he felt that he had not followed the wrong big bro. However, Medicine Stone had underestimated his big bro. Before the newbie world had even appeared, he had done something that had shaken the entire ancient stem domain. His potential was simply unparalleled. To be able to get such a cheap big bro, Medicine Stone felt incredibly happy because he would definitely follow this cheap big bro to the peak of the world. Chapter 1062. Take military types as an example. Right now, the outer domains were mostly made up of Stage 1 soldiers, with Stage 2 soldiers as support. There were very few Stage 3 soldiers, and most of the Stage 4 soldiers were generals. Even though the ancient stem domain was just a small, desolate domain in the Heaven Awakened world, it was definitely much more powerful than the New World. The kingdoms in the inner domains were mostly made up of Stage 2 soldiers, with Stage 3 soldiers as support. There were also many Stage 4 soldiers, and only those with Stage 5 cultivation could become generals. The difference in strength between Stage 1 and Stage 2 soldiers was 7 or 8 times, and if they fought, the result would be obvious. Moreover, the longer a faction existed, the more powerful its foundation and the more tricks it would have. It could be said that the factions in the inner domains were far more powerful than those in the outer domains, as their strength was on a completely different level. Zhao Fu felt quite startled. Even if it was a kingdom of the same level, if they fought, it would be very difficult for Qin to win. Moreover, the ancient stem domain was just a small, desolate domain, while the heaven domain was at the center of the Heaven Awakened world. Just how powerful was it? Thinking about that, Zhao Fu could not help but gulp and put away his arrogance and carelessness. In comparison, Qin was still quite weak. After talking for a while, Zhao Fu learned about the ancient stem domain's matters. He decided to use the Emperor Killing Sword less in the future, as it would cause too much trouble and drag down Qin. Zhao Fu did not want people from the inner domains to attack Qin because of this. At the same time, Zhao Fu learned about the most powerful factions in the ancient stem domain, and he gained a deeper understanding of the Bear Mountain Kingdom. After all, the person who had fought with Zhao Fu before was the Bear Mountain Kingdom's third prince, and he had some enmity with Zhao Fu. Moreover, Qin did not lack Stage 1 corpses, as he still had 2 billion or so. However, he lacked high-grade corpses, such as Stage 2, Stage 3, Stage 4 corpses, which Qin desperately needed. If he went to the inner domains of the ancient stem domain, he might be able to obtain many high-grade corpses. These corpses could be refined into blood god pills, which were medicinal pills refined from corpses. They contained large amounts of cultivation power and could greatly increase one's cultivation, but they could only be used once. Blood god pills were split into different grades, as they were refined from corpses of different cultivations. They could raise a Stage 0 soldier's cultivation to Stage 4, a stage 5 soldier's cultivation to stage 8, and a stage 8 soldier's cultivation to stage 1. All of the blood god pills had the same effect. They could greatly increase one's cultivation in a short period of time. One of the main reasons why Great Qin was so powerful was because of the blood god pills. They could be said to be one of Great Qin's greatest cheat-like weapons. With the blood god pills, Zhao Fu would be able to close the gap between him and the people from the inner regions of the ancient stem domain, and he would no longer have to fear the people from the inner regions. At the same time, because of the grade orbs, all of Qin's soldiers' grades were higher than ordinary people's. Their cultivation speed and comprehension were naturally faster than ordinary people's, and this reduced the distance between them and the inner domains, making up for their lack of foundations. After thinking for a while, Zhao Lord decided to go to the inner domains and obtain a large number of high-grade corpses. Qin had to quickly close the gap between him and others. However, this required him to cross over 100 worlds. Even though there were teleportation channels, the journey was incredibly long and would take a lot of time. Moreover, there might be dangers, so Zhao Lord started to make preparations for going to the inner domains. A month or so later, it started to snow lightly, and a cold wind blew, seeming to be able to cut one's skin. All of the leaves had fallen, and there were no birds chirping. A thin layer of ice had formed on the creek, and it was a cold scene. It was now winter, and this was the 5th winter that Zhao Lord had experienced. Zhao Lord brought the travel-worn Gania to a restaurant and asked for 2 good rooms. During that month or so, Zhao Lord and Gania continued to travel. Because the various kingdoms did not provide teleportation channels, Zhao Lord had to rely on himself to build teleportation channels to reach the inner domains of the ancient stem domain. However, the next time he came, it would be much easier. Zhao Fu built these teleportation channels in some hidden places to ensure his safety. After washing up, Zhao Lord and Gania went to the first floor and prepared to eat. This place was now in the inner domains, and, just as a medicinal pill had said, the basic soldiers here were all at stage 2. Some of the commoners had stage 1 cultivation, and they were much more powerful than those in the outer domains. Zhao Lord mainly wanted to find a merchant group to work with. As long as there was money, a merchant group would do anything. With the merchant group's abilities, they were most suited to collecting things, and there was no need for Zhao Lord to personally collect things. Moreover, it was possible that he would not be able to collect them, and it would not be easy for his identity to be exposed. There were a few very powerful merchant groups in the ancient stem domain that had existed for a long time and had deep foundations. They were even more powerful than ordinary dukedom kingdoms, and if Zhao Lord worked with them, he would most likely not encounter the same situation as the Kershi kingdom. They would be able to provide corpses for Zhao Lord for a long time, but the prerequisite was that he had money. This city was a barony city, and it belonged to a faction called the 10,000 Dragon Financial Group. Most of the 10,000 Dragon Financial Group's factions were in the western part of the inner domains, and they were the closest to the Qin kingdom. If Zhao Lord did not work with them, he would have to spend a month or so traveling to other places. Gania, sit down and eat. Zhao Lord ordered a table of delicious food and planned to have a good meal to make up for his hard work over the past month. Looking at Gania, who was obediently standing behind him, Zhao Fu did not put on any airs and smiled as he spoke. In actuality, Zhao Fu's strength far surpassed Gania's, and he did not need Gania's protection at all. Zhao Fu had brought Gania here to take care of some things that he could not do. Moreover, Zhao Fu's strength was limited, so he needed Gania to do some things. Hearing this, Gania nodded and sat down, and the two of them started to eat. At this moment, an elegant young master dressed in white with an exquisite silver sword strapped to his belt walked in from outside the door with 2 guards. The guards were a man and a woman. The man looked cold and handsome and gave off a sharp aura of a swordsman, and it was obvious that he was an expert in the way of the sword. The woman's aura was also extremely powerful, and she wore black clothes. She had a graceful figure and was quite beautiful. "Waiter, prepare a table of good food and wine," The young man in white smiled as he sat down at the table next to Zhao Fu and called out. Following this, a waiter came over to greet them. The waiter called for the food to be served, and the young man in white and the other two sat down to wait. At that moment, the cold-looking man sensed something and looked at Gania, his pupils constricting. The young man in white felt quite curious and looked over at the two cloaked figures at the table next to him. However, he was not looking at Gania, but rather at Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu sensed this gaze and looked up at the young man in white. When their gazes met, the young man's gentle smile froze. Chapter 1063. Interesting. The white-robed young man suddenly laughed and looked at Zhao Fu. He then stood up and went to Zhao Fu's table. The cold-looking young man by the side could not help but say, "Young master, it was better not to go. That person is not to be trifled with. His comprehension of the way of the sword is probably above mine. He is an extremely dangerous person, so there is no need to have any other connections." His words were directed at Gania because he could sense the formless sword aura that Gania was giving off. As someone who practiced the way of the sword, he knew very well how terrifying someone who could release such an aura was. I know. However, the person he was looking at was not Gania, but Zhao Fu next to him. He felt that Zhao Fu was more terrifying than Gania. The black-clothed woman, who didn't care at first, was also attracted by the conversation between the two. She looked at the table next to them and faintly felt that these two people weren't simple. "Brother, my name is Bing Chi Xue. I wonder if we can get to know each other?" The white-robed young man stood up and walked over to Zhao Fu's table as he cupped his hands. Zhao Fu shook his head and refused. He had come all the way here for important business. Furthermore, this was the inner reaches, and there were many people more powerful than him. Zhao Fu didn't want to cause any trouble, and therefore, he wanted to keep a low profile. Bing Qishue's expression immediately became awkward. He had never thought that Zhao Fu would not give him any face at all. The woman in black coldly harumphed and was about to say something, but Bing Qishue glanced at her, so she could only swallow her words. "Then I'm sorry to bother you." Bing Qishue did not feel angry and only had an awkward smile on his face as he cupped his hands toward Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu was quite surprised by Bing Qishue's attitude. Most people would have been angry and ignored Zhao Fu, but he had never thought that he would apologize. Zhao Fu's impression of him was quite good. "I'm fine." Seeing how polite and humble the other party was, Zhao Fu could not refuse to say anything, so he simply replied. He did not speak Chinese, but one of the common languages in the ancient STEM domain. Zhao Fu had been prepared. Bing Qishue lightly laughed and returned to the table. At that moment, the waiter brought out the dishes. "This young master is reserving this place. Everyone else, scram." A brash voice sounded out from outside as a young man walked in with 7 peerlessly beautiful women. Zhao Fu looked over and found that these people's auras were quite familiar, but he couldn't remember where he had seen them before. This voice caused the surrounding guests to feel quite displeased, and they all looked towards the young man. Anyone who was chased out like this would not be in a good mood. Seeing this, the innkeeper immediately walked out from behind the counter and said with a smile, "Young master, our inn-superior rooms are not full yet. You don't need to spend money." The purple-clothed young man snorted coldly at everyone's gazes and threw out a bag of coins. "Do you think this young master lacks that bit of money? This young master will book this inn. This young master will not stay with this group of people and lower my status. This Fuji Fu and the master's lord, and the Fu. This master, but I Zhao Fu master this I Zhao. It's just that the inn already has some guests, and there are still many people eating. It's quite inconvenient." The violet-clothed young man's gaze became cold, and he exploded out with a terrifying aura, causing the entire inn to become serious. "This young master is the 8 Dragons Essence Sect's young sect master, Long Yang." "What? He's Long Yang, the 19th ranked Long Yang?" Everyone felt quite shocked. They had never thought that the violet-clothed young man would have such an illustrious identity. The ancient STEM rankings was a list of the geniuses of the ancient STEM domain. It was a list created by many top-tier factions, and it did not only exist in the ancient STEM domain, but also in other domains. This was because it represented a domain's image. Only by having many powerful geniuses would a domain have hope, and it represented potential. The people on the ancient STEM rankings were a topic of discussion for countless people, and almost everyone in the inner regions of the ancient STEM domains knew about them. As such, everyone present had heard of Long Yang's name. Feeling that terrifying aura, everyone felt terror in their hearts. They could not afford to offend such a person. As such, they all got up and prepared to leave. The innkeeper was quite shocked at Long Yang's identity, and looking at the people preparing to leave, he could only helplessly tell the waiter to pack up. Oof, what big words. You're just 19th ranked on the ancient STEM rankings. Who do you think our young master is? Our young master is the Ice Origin Kingdom's crown prince, the 9th-ranked Bing Qi Xue. The woman in black coldly harumphed as she stood up and spoke loudly. She could not bear to see their crown prince being chased out. What? Bing Qi Xue? The 9th-ranked Bing Qi Xue? Everyone was sent into an uproar. They had never thought that another major figure would appear, and this one was even more prestigious than Long Yang. Not only was there a difference of 10 ranks between the ancient STEM rankings, but the Ice Origin Kingdom was also one of the ancient STEM domain's 20 royal kingdoms. After speaking, the woman in black gave a trace of a pleased smile as she looked at Zhao Fu and thought to herself, "Now you know our young master's true identity. You still dare to treat our young master like that? You'll be currying favor with him later." After hearing Long Yang's reminder, Zhao Fu realized that it was he who had brought people to the Lalai Kingdom and activated the nation-protecting formation. Back then, they had turned into rays of light and left, and Zhao Fu had only glanced over them and did not look down on them. Now that they were talking about the 8 Dragons Essence sect, Zhao Fu realized that it was them. At the same time, Zhao Fu felt quite shocked about Bing Qi Xue's identity. He had never thought that he would be able to meet someone from a royal kingdom so easily, and it was a major figure from the ancient STEM domain. In the future, it was possible that he would take over the Ice Origin Kingdom and become a true king. Lil and I, don't be too presumptuous. Bing Qi Xue slightly frowned as he warmly warned her, looking like a well-mannered scholar. The woman in black lightly harumphed and returned to her seat. Looking at Zhao Fu's shocked expression, she gave a trace of smile and thought to herself, "I knew it would be like this. Now that I know their young master's identity, I'll definitely be scared." Long Yang's expression became quite unsightly. He had never thought that he would meet Bing Qi Xue here. Bing Qi Xue was stronger than him, and the faction behind him was greater as well. Long Yang naturally could not say anything and could only coldly harumph as he said, "Bing Qi Xue, after this young master cultivates the 8 dragons' divine art, I'll definitely challenge you." Following this, Long Yang took his people and left. Staying here would only make him look bad and make a joke of himself. Bing Qi Xue sighed and did not say anything. Everyone in the inn looked at Bing Qi Xue with admiration and respect. They had never thought that such a prestigious person would not mind staying in the same inn as them. His friendliness made them feel quite shocked. Chapter 1064. The woman in black waited for a while and looked at Zhao Fu and Bing Qi Xue in surprise. They had not come to curry favor with their young master. Her young master was the crown prince of the Ice Origin Kingdom, and he was ranked 9th in the ancient STEM domain, Bing Qi Xue. If his identity was revealed, it would be terrifying. In the entire ancient STEM domain, there were only a few people who could compare to their young master. With such a prestigious identity, ordinary people would be incredibly lucky to meet him. Anyone who could curry favor with their young master would be connected to the ancient STEM domain's geniuses. Moreover, their young master had the Ice Origin Kingdom behind him, which meant massive benefits. Moreover, their young master had taken the initiative to greet them, yet this person had not taken the opportunity to curry favor with their young master. Was this person stupid to miss out on such a good opportunity? Bing Qi Xue felt slightly surprised. After this person had found out about his identity, he had been quite surprised, but after that, there was nothing else. This person might not be simple at all. Bing Qixue suddenly thought of his goal here and thought about it. He could not help but ask, "Brother, are you here for the Cosmos Medallion? Are you also here for the Cosmos Medallion?" Zhao Fu felt quite startled. He did not know what a Cosmos Medallion was, but this person's goal was most likely the Cosmos Medallion. As such, he simply replied, "No." Bing Qixue felt even more curious. This person's identity was not simple, and he was not here for the Cosmos Medallion. As such, he could not possibly guess Zhao Fu's identity. His goal was to buy corpses. However, this person's coldness made him feel quite awkward. It was the first time someone had treated him like this. If it was an ordinary person, he would not have bothered to pay attention to them. "What is a Cosmos Medallion?" Zhao Fu suddenly asked. Hearing this, Bing Qixue could not help but laugh. It seemed that this person was quite interested in the Cosmos Medallion. So he explained, Cosmos Medallions are necessary to enter the Cosmos Historical Remnant. The Cosmos Historical Remnant is the largest and most ancient historical remnant in the surrounding 10 or so domains. It contains countless treasures, so it naturally attracts countless people. Legend said that the Cosmos Historical Remnant belonged to an ancient higher being and had existed before the ancient STEM domain was created. It would open every 10 years, and each time, a Cosmos Medallion would fly out from the historical remnant. Anyone who obtained a Cosmos Medallion would be able to enter. It was now the 8th year, and there were still 2 years before the Cosmos Historical Remnant would open. Only those below Stage 9 could enter, and City Lord seals and other seals would be useless, so one could only rely on one's own cultivation. This time, the 10,000 Dragon Financial Group has sold 362 Cosmos Medallions. If you're interested, you should be able to get one. Hearing that the Cosmos Historical Remnant was so famous, it would be a lie for Zhao Fu to not be interested. He made a mental note of this and thanked Bing Qixue. Bing Qixue smiled and shook his head, indicating that there was no need. He had wanted to chat with Zhao Fu for a bit and try to guess Zhao Fu's identity. But Zhao Fu had become cold again. After eating, he went to his room, and Bing Qixue could only bitterly laugh. "Young master, this person is looking down on you too much. Shouldn't you teach him a lesson? With young master's strength, you will definitely be able to crush this fellow who doesn't know what's good for him." Seeing Zhao Fu leave, the woman in black could not help but angrily say, no one had ever dared to treat their young master like this before. Bing Qixue felt quite startled and replied somewhat seriously, "That's not necessarily true. That person is extremely dangerous, and I don't have much confidence unless I use my world seal. Also, that person's identity is not simple at all. Did you know that when I first met his gaze, his eyes were the most terrifying eyes I've ever seen? They definitely aren't something that an ordinary race can have, and they cause my bloodline to cool down, making me feel a deep chill." The woman in black looked quite shocked as she said, "Young master, your bloodline is a true royal bloodline and has powerful king's power. How could you feel fear? How could someone from the ancient STEM domain do such a thing?" Bing Qixue breathed out and lightly laughed as he said, "This world is quite big, and the ancient STEM domain is just a small domain at the boundary of the desolate domain. There are many people more powerful than me, so it's not too surprising." Following this, Bing Qixue and the others ate some food before leaving the tavern. The next day, Zhao Fu came to the 10,000 Dragon Financial Group, and the person who received Zhao Fu was a middle-aged man in gray robes. Zhao Fu directly said, "I need a large number of Stage 2 and above corpses. Would the financial group be able to provide them?" The middle-aged man in gray felt quite surprised because very few people would come to buy corpses, and they would buy them in large quantities. As one of the largest financial groups in the ancient STEM domain, they had all sorts of goods, and corpses could also be sold. After thinking for a moment, he smiled and said, "Of course. How many do you need, sir? The 10,000 Dragon Financial Group will satisfy all of our customers' requests." Zhao Fu nodded and said, "I wonder how many the 10,000 Dragon Financial Group can provide." Hearing this, the middle-aged man in gray realized that Zhao Fu was a big customer. So his smile became even brighter and his tone became more courteous as he said, "Ordinary financial groups rarely store corpses, unless they have other uses. Ordinary Stage 2 corpses are quite rare, but we can provide, sir, with 1 million Stage 2 corpses, 100,000 Stage 3 corpses, and 10,000 Stage 4 corpses. As for the price, Stage 2 corpses are 10 gold coins each, Stage 3 corpses are 100 gold coins each, and Stage 4 corpses are 1,000 gold coins each." Hearing this, Zhao Fu thought about it and nodded. This price was actually quite cheap. Before, when Zhao Fu had bought corpses in the Kershi Kingdom, Stage 1 corpses had cost 20 gold coins, Stage 2 corpses had cost 100 gold coins, and Stage 3 corpses had cost 500 gold coins. However, the higher the grade of the corpses, the higher the price. Zhao Fu could understand this, but he could not afford it. For example, Stage 4 corpses were 1,000 gold coins each, so 10 corpses would be 10,000 gold coins. 100 corpses would be 100,000 gold coins, 1,000 corpses would be 1 million gold coins, and 10,000 corpses would be 10 million gold coins. Of course, he needed a large number of corpses. That way, he would be able to provide a large number of blood god pills. In the future, most of Qin City's finances would be spent on this, and Qin City lacked talisman stones as well. Thinking about how Qin City had billions of soldiers, if they bought both talisman stones and corpses, Qin City's finances would not be able to support them at all. As such, they could only focus on corpses and buy fewer talisman stones. This was because blood god pills increased one's strength, while talisman stones increased one's external strength. 1 million Stage 2 corpses, 100,000 Stage 3 corpses, and 10,000 Stage 4 corpses. That was 30 million gold coins in total. To Zhao Fu, this was not much. Zhao Fu took out the money and gave it to the middle-aged man in gray before receiving the corpses. "In the future, I will come every once in a while. I will be very grateful if the financial group could provide me with corpses in the long term." Chapter 1065. Following this, Zhao Fu asked, "What is the price of a Cosmos medallion? I would like to buy one." Hearing this, the gray-robed, middle-aged man said apologetically, "Cosmos medallions are auctioned items and cannot be sold here. Sir needs to go to the auction house, which has already started. This is our merchant group's VIP card, so Sir should go as soon as possible, or else it might be auctioned off." Zhao Fu felt quite startled and had never thought that things would turn out like this. He took the silver dragon inscription card from the gray-robed, middle-aged man and quickly left, planning to go to the auction house. Seeing that Zhao Fu was in such a hurry, the gray-robed, middle-aged man said, "Sir, since you're in such a hurry, I'll have someone bring it to you. That way, you won't have to look for it again." Following this, the gray-robed, middle-aged man called over a pleasant-looking young man, who respectfully bowed to Zhao Fu a few times. Following this, Zhao Fu followed him to the auction house. However, by the time they arrived, the auction had already concluded, making Zhao Fu feel quite disappointed. He had wanted to obtain a Cosmos medallion and go to the Cosmos historical remnant to see what he could obtain. That historical remnant was evidently not simple, and it seemed that it was impossible. Zhao Fu sighed and prepared to leave with Gania. At that moment, a light laugh sounded out from behind Zhao Fu. "Brother, you're too late. You're a step too late. The auction has already ended, and all the items have been auctioned off." Zhao Fu turned and looked at Bing Qishua walk out of the auction house, and he helplessly nodded. Zhao Fu had never thought that the Cosmos medallion he had heard about yesterday would be gone today. This was simply too fast, and it completely surpassed what Zhao Fu had expected. "This lowly one bought two. Does brother want them?" "This lowly one can gift one to you," Bing Qishua said as he smiled at Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu did not say anything. Even though it was just a simple question, if he accepted it, he would owe him a favor. Zhao Fu did not want to owe others favors, as he would have to repay them in the future. Otherwise, Zhao Fu would feel quite guilty. This young master bought 3. Do you want them? Come and make this young master happy and I'll reward you." Long Yang arrogantly walked out with 7 beautiful women. Long Yang was quite wary of Bing Qixue, but he did not care about anyone else. He still remembered the humiliation he had suffered yesterday, and it had made him feel quite displeased. Seeing that Zhao Fu seemed to be related to Bing Qixue, he had found an outlet to vent his anger. In actuality, the 8 Dragons Essence sect had existed for a long time and was a very powerful faction. It had 6 worlds, so it wasn't too afraid of kingdoms. He knew all of the major figures in the ancient STEM domain, but he had never seen someone like Zhao Fu before. However, it was evident that his status was quite low, so he did not place Zhao Fu in his eyes. Zhao Fu's expression was somewhat displeased, but he didn't say anything. Bing Qixue slightly frowned. He truly disliked this Long Yang, but he also had some misgivings. "Yeah, our young master is the young sect master of the 8 Dragons Essence sect. If you curry favor with our young master, you'll receive unimaginable benefits," a peerlessly beautiful woman in red said proudly as she hugged Long Yang. She had not heard what Bing Qixue had said. If Zhao Fu wanted one, he would give it to him for free. If he could directly ask Bing Qixue for it, why would he curry favor with Long Yang? The surrounding people all gathered around, as if they were watching a good show. In the auction just now, they already knew how distinguished the identities of these 2 people were, and they were far from people they could afford to offend. So, now that something was happening, many people gathered around. Facing everyone's gazes, Long Yang gave a trace of a domineering smile as he threw a palm-sized wooden medallion in front of Zhao Fu. He spread out his arms and hugged 4 beautiful women as he said, "If you want it, take it. This young master will reward it to you." This caused everyone to be sent into an uproar. That was a Cosmos medallion, and each one was worth 20 million gold coins. He had given it away just like that. Looking at the Cosmos medallion on the ground, everyone wanted to immediately pick it up and stuff it into their pockets. However, they feared Long Yang's strength and status, so they did not dare to do so. "Long Yang, don't go too far." A trace of anger appeared on Bing Qixue's face because Long Yang was evidently insulting Zhao Fu, which was also insulting him. Seeing Bing Qixue angry, Long Yang felt quite pleased. He understood that he could not continue like this, or else things would not end well. As such, he loudly laughed and prepared to leave with his people. The young man next to Zhao Fu, the attendant who had brought Zhao Fu here, felt quite nervous because he had never thought that such a big thing would happen. "Is there any other way to obtain a Cosmos medallion?" Zhao Fu suddenly asked. Since the 10,000 Dragon Financial Group sold so many Cosmos medallions, perhaps they still had some left. The attendant immediately replied, "The 10,000 Dragon Financial Group still has one, but it's on the 10,000 Dragon stage. You need to go up there." After saying this, the attendant regretted it. After all, no one could go up to the 10,000 Dragon stage, so he would have been wasting his words. In the end, he might make Zhao Fu unhappy, and he could not afford to offend anyone. "Let's go. Take me to the 10,000 Dragon stage," Zhao Fu said calmly. Since he did not want to Bing Qixue a favor or be insulted by Long Yang, he could only go to the 10,000 Dragon stage and try. The attendant looked quite regretful as he said, "Sir, the 10,000 Dragon stage is extremely difficult to ascend. It has extremely high requirements for one's bloodline and fate. Ever since the 10,000 Dragon stage was constructed, not a single person has been able to ascend it." Hearing about bloodline and fate, Zhao Fu could not help but smile. If it was anything else, Zhao Fu would not feel confident, but Zhao Fu was completely confident in these 2 things. "I know, take me there." Seeing that there was nothing else the attendant could do, he could only agree to Zhao Fu's request and plan to take Zhao Fu to the 10,000 Dragon stage. Hearing that Zhao Fu wanted to ascend the 10,000 Dragon stage, the people in the surroundings looked quite shocked before they could not help but laugh. They felt that Zhao Fu did not know the immensity of the heavens and earth, and the 10,000 Dragon stage was an interesting event in the inner regions of the ancient STEM domain. There were countless treasures there, and anyone who could ascend the 10,000 dragon stage would obtain all of them. Moreover, that person would become an esteemed guest of the 10,000 Dragon Financial Group. Countless people dreamed about ascending it, but no one had ever succeeded. Bing Qixue had tried once and found that it was impossible. Bing Qixue could not help but say, "Brother, there's no need to go through so much trouble. I just want to befriend you, and this Cosmos medallion is just a small gift. You don't need to mind it at all." Ha! He wants to ascend the 10,000 dragon stage? What an arrogant and ignorant person. Long Yang, who was about to leave, laughed mockingly. The 7 peerlessly beautiful women beside him also covered their mouths and laughed, not believing him at all. Chapter 1066. Seeing how ungrateful Zhao Fu was, the woman in black angrily harumphed and said, "Our young master treated him so well, yet he didn't accept it. He really doesn't know what's good for him. How can an ordinary person climb up the 10,000 dragon stage? Our young master has a pure king's bloodline, but he couldn't do it. How could he do it? He's going to make a fool of himself." Bing Qixue could not understand why Zhao Fu was so stubborn. Did he hate being friends with him that much? As for whether or not Zhao Fu could climb up the 10,000 dragon stage, Bing Qixue's answer was that it was impossible. He had personally tried it and knew that ordinary kings could not climb it. That terrifying power was something that even people with sovereign bloodlines would find difficult. Apart from bloodlines, there was also a person's fate, which required a massive amount of fate. It was not something that ordinary kings could have. No one knew why the 10,000 Dragon Financial Group had built such a stage. It was said that the 10,000 Dragon Financial Group had built it right after it had been established. No one knew what their goal was, but it seemed to be to verify a prophecy. Let's go and watch the show. There's actually someone who wants to climb up the 10,000 Dragon stage. He's looking to be humiliated. Let's see how high the heavens are. The people in the surroundings laughed as they said. Long Yang had a look of mockery and disdain. He had tried the 10,000 Dragon stage and knew how terrifying it was. Zhao Fu was simply dreaming if he wanted to climb it. He did not know how Bing Qixue knew such an arrogant person. However, he didn't pick up the Cosmos medallion that he threw at him. It looks like he has some backbone. Let's see how he'll be humiliated. Thinking about that, Long Yang laughed as he said, "Let's go. You guys come with this young master to have a look." A beautiful woman next to him harumphed as she said, "Husband already knows the result. What's there to see? No matter how he compares, he can't compare to my husband. Wait until husband finds a final sister and cultivates the 8 dragons' divine art. You'll definitely be able to defeat that Bing Qixue." That's right. We believe that husband is the best. He hasn't even cultivated the divine art and is already ranked 19th. If he cultivates it, he'll definitely be in the top 5, another beautiful woman said. A dainty woman also said, "What a pity. Last time, I finally found a suitable one, but unfortunately, my virginity was taken by that bastard. What a pity. Otherwise, my husband would have been able to cultivate the saint art long ago. I've waited for a long time. I've always wanted to do it with you. I want you to do it with me. I want you to play with me. It's best if you don't get out of bed for 3 days." A seductive woman licked her red lips and said. Long Yang laughed as he hugged the woman and kissed her, saying in a comforting tone, "This young master also wants to. Later, we'll continue to look for the 8th princess, and then this young master will let you all know what true bliss is." Zhao Fu followed the attendant towards the 10,000 dragon stage, and the others followed behind them. Not only did Long Yang go, but Bing Qixue also wanted to go and see what had happened. At the same time, he felt more and more curious about Zhao Fu. Looking at Zhao Fu, he definitely did not seem to be from the ancient STEM domain, as he did not know many things. However, most people in the ancient STEM domain knew about these things. The news of someone wanting to ascend the 10,000 dragon stage spread throughout the entire city, but no one reacted at all. After all, countless people had wanted to ascend the 10,000 dragon stage, but no one had been able to do so. No one paid too much attention to this, as everyone knew what the outcome would be. It was most likely another whimsical fellow who wanted to give it a try. After all, there were countless treasures on the 10,000 dragon stage, and anyone who could ascend it would obtain all of them. Just thinking about this made anyone feel excited, as this was something that would be incredibly profitable. There were many people who wanted to ascend the 10,000 dragon stage, so they naturally did not care about this news. After all, they could not possibly go to every single person who wanted to ascend the 10,000 dragon stage, right? They did not have the leisure to watch an ignorant minor figure lose face. However, when they heard that this person was related to the 9th-ranked Bing Qixue on the ancient STEM rankings, they immediately became interested. They also heard that he was related to the 19th-ranked Long Yang, making them unable to hold themselves back. They wondered what their relationship was and what that person's identity was. Since he was related to a major figure on the ancient STEM rankings, could he also be a major figure on the ancient STEM rankings? As such, everyone headed over to see those two major figures. As for Zhao Fu, he was just an extra. They did not have the mood to care about a nameless person. After walking for a while, everyone arrived in front of a large stone platform. This stone platform was 1,000 meters tall and several hundred meters wide. It was circular, and there were massive stone steps on it. Each step was 3 meters long and half a meter tall. There were also stone pillars on each flight of stone steps. Lifelike dragons were carved on them, and each dragon seemed to be different. The stone stage was covered with terrifying restrictions, and it gave off an extremely dangerous aura. However, the restrictions gave off treasure lights, making it seem like a treasure trove, making countless people feel tempted. The 10,000 dragon stage gave off a majestic and domineering feeling, as if it really did have the might of 10,000 dragons. It seemed to shake the surroundings and cause all creatures to submit. The attendant brought Zhao Fu here and apologized to Zhao Fu before hurriedly leaving. He had never thought that such a big matter would occur, and he had to quickly report this matter. Before, he had only come to lead the way, and the manager had said that this was a big customer and that he had to take good care of him. On the way, he had tried his best to curry favor with Zhao Fu, but he had never thought that this matter would involve two geniuses on the ancient STEM rankings. This was completely beyond what he could accept, and he had to immediately report this matter. After hearing about this, the manager looked quite surprised. He had never thought that such a thing would happen. That mysterious person's identity was not simple at all. What was his goal in buying so many corpses? Since he was related to two people on the ancient STEM rankings, the manager could not help but feel quite concerned. Since Zhao Fu was buying corpses, perhaps he came from a large faction. It seemed that he had to take good care of this person in the future. Manager, what should we do now? That esteemed guest is about to step onto the 10,000 dragon stage, the attendant said as he looked at the contemplating manager. Hearing this, the manager lightly laughed and waved his hand, saying, "Don't worry about it. If he wants to try, let him try. The result will be the same anyway." Ever since the 10,000 dragon stage was built, no one has ever stepped onto it, as it's impossible. Back then, even the first president who built the 10,000 dragon stage couldn't do it. Who do you think can? As such, let him be. Just take good care of him in the future. Also, if he wants a Cosmos medallion, just look around the other branches and help him collect one in the future. Seeing that the manager was like this, the attendant felt much more at ease and nodded. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.